Chapter 30:27. The peerless fist intent alone caused the stars in the sky to fall. The starlight was destroyed, and the billions of stars formed by Zhou Tian's starfall immortal art shattered at the same time. The fist imprint swept over. The figure formed by the true martial emperor fist was like the true martial emperor, but when it collided with Ling Zhao's fist imprint, it was instantly destroyed. The yin-yang great millstone in the void and the dazzling destructive immortal light were all annihilated by the punch. Boom! Wu Xingchen and the other three felt their bodies tremble, and the void around them shook violently. They were sent flying, and their eyes were filled with shock. "You dare to kill me with just your strength?" Ling Zhao's voice was as loud as a bell, and it shook people's souls. His aura was majestic, and 3,000 worlds surrounded him. As he stepped forward, the blazing immortal light around him was destroyed. He strode forward, holding the invincible fist imprint. His eyes were like lightning, and his hair fluttered in the wind as he charged toward Wu Xingchen and the other three. The Four Guardian Sky Formation was formed by the four Supreme Emperor weapons as the foundation, and the four sacred beasts were formed to support Wu Xingchen and the other three, giving them the supreme divine power of the four sacred beasts. Moreover, the Four Guardian Sky Formation could overturn the universe, destroy the stars, and create a destructive force. Not only could it trap people, but it could also kill people. Even an immortal monarch expert would lose all senses within the four divisions heaven-subduing formation and be obliterated by the destructive force. However, Ling Zhao was different. He unleashed the strongest primordial immortal body, and the chaotic divine bone on his chest released chaotic light, making him invincible. No matter what kind of killing intent he encountered, he charged forward with his physical body. The Four Guardian Sky Formation could not break through his defense at all. Ling Zhao only stared at Wu Xingchen and the other three. His fist imprint was domineering, and it was invincible. Wu Xingchen and the other three felt a huge pressure coming toward them, as if there was no way to avoid it. It felt as if Ling Zhao was the master of the Four Guardian Sky Formation, and he was suppressing them. "Kill!" Wu Xingchen's face was extremely ugly. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he roared. Above his head, a white tiger divine beast roared and pounced towards Ling Zhao. The huge white tiger exuded an ancient and savage aura. It was as if the white tiger holy beast had descended into the world. It exuded an endless amount of Gengjin baleful qi. Rumble! Ling Zhao's fist was invincible. The primal chaos fist seal collided with the white tiger saint beast. Unexpectedly, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. Boundless baleful qi surged, wanting to envelop Ling Zhao. However, no matter how strong the white tiger holy beast was, it was still no match for Ling Zhao's fist and exploded. The four symbols heaven-subduing formation diagram shone brightly. After the white tiger holy beast was destroyed, it condensed once again. The four sacred beasts of the four sacred beasts were immortal existences within the four sacred beasts of the four sacred beasts formation. Soon after, other than the white tiger sacred beast, the green dragon sacred beast and the other three sacred beasts also pounced at Su Mo. Their auras were extremely terrifying. Their powers seemed to be connected together, forming an absolute kill zone. "Don't hold back. Go all out and kill Lei Ling." A cold light flashed across Ren Tianjue's eyes as an ancient mirror appeared in his palm. The Alcade mirror could illuminate 3,000 worlds and transform into millions of stars. It could form an Alcade destruction zone that could destroy everything. The Alcade mirror shone brightly. It was as if millions of stars had emerged from it. It swept across the sky and suppressed Ren Tianjue. "Kill!" Wu Xingchen, Dong Fangbai, and Fang Qingshue's eyes turned solemn. They roared and took out their three extreme Dao Emperor weapons. True Force Sword, Yin Yang Cauldron, Kunlun Zither. The three extreme Dao Emperor weapons shone brightly. The four symbols heaven-subduing formation diagram's power was pushed to the extreme. Other than the four sacred beasts, the four saints charged at Ling Zhao with their extreme Dao Emperor weapons. Their extreme Dao Emperor auras surged like the sea and intertwined to form a terrifying land of destruction. They were going to kill Ling Zhao. Ling Zhao's physical body was too strong. It was so strong that they felt fear in their hearts. The more this was the case, the stronger their killing intent towards Ling Xiao. No matter what, they could not let Ling Xiao escape. Otherwise, they would be in big trouble. 4 Extreme Dao Emperor weapons? You guys have really put in a lot of effort to kill me. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed as he sneered. The terrifying killing intent around him instantly surged. Although his primordial immortal body was extremely strong, it could not withstand the power of the Extreme Dao Emperor weapons. The 4 Extreme Dao Emperor weapons made Ling Xiao feel threatened. Only the Extreme Dao Emperor weapons could deal with the Extreme Dao Emperor weapons. Clang! The immortal culling sword shone brightly. In an instant, Ling Xiao grasped it in his hand and slashed it down from the sky. The bodies of the 4 saint beasts that were fighting with him trembled as they were sliced into 2 halves by his sword, exploding into pieces in the void. Ling Xiao leapt into the air. With a swing of his sword, he shattered the destructive light from the Alcade mirror before violently clashing with the true Force sword. Boom! Immortal light burst forth. The divine light was dazzling. The yin-yang cauldron expanded like a mountain and pressed down on Ling Xiao from the sky. Ding dong, Fang Qingshue's clothes fluttered like a fairy. The Kunlun zither floated in front of her. As her slender fingers stroked it, a strange sound wave was heard and shrouded Ling Xiao. Kunlun Requiem. This was a supreme immortal technique that worked in tandem with the Kunlun zither. It could affect one's mind and reach the depths of one's primordial spirit. It was the strongest primordial spirit attack. Ling Xiao held the immortal culling sword and clashed with the true Force sword. He then pointed his sword at the yin-yang cauldron. However, at this moment, the strange sound of the zither was heard. Ling Xiao's primordial spirit trembled slightly and showed signs of dissipating. Divine light flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes, and the wordless heavenly book emitted an ancient and mysterious light. The 13 origins of the Great Path appeared around his primordial spirit, and the sound wave was instantly swallowed up by the sky-swallowing secret technique. After the sky-devouring secret technique formed the sky-devouring origin, it could devour everything. Even the primordial spirit attack of the Kunlun Requiem could be devoured. However, Ling Xiao hesitated for a moment. His immortal culling sword trembled slightly and the yin-yang cauldron came down on him, sending him flying. Kill! Wu Xingchen and the other 3's eyes lit up. Seeing that Ling Xiao was finally showing signs of defeat, they were instantly energized. They all held their Extreme Dao Emperor weapons and charged at Ling Xiao. The 4 Extreme Dao Emperor weapons intertwined. The terrifying power could annihilate everything and it was impossible to defend against. They all planned to kill Ling Xiao in one go. The sound of the Kunlun zither became more hurried. Strange sound waves swept across the sky and shrouded Ling Xiao's entire body. They kept moving towards the depths of his primordial spirit. Fang Qingshue's face was cold and her eyes were filled with murderous intent. The Kunlun zither combined with the Kunlun Requiem was a supreme primordial spirit attack that no one could block. As for Wu Xingchen and the other 2, they unleashed the strongest power of their Extreme Dao Emperor weapons and attacked from all directions. Almost instantly, Ling Xiao was surrounded and attacked by the 4 of them. Chapter 3028. Rumble. Ling Xiao's eyes flickered with a bright light. The blazing vital energy and blood around him rose, and a terrifying murderous aura emanated from him. He unleashed the great immortal slaughter technique and formed a slaughter domain around him. Every time he struck out with the immortal slaughter sword, he could destroy everything with unparalleled power. As for the Kunlun zither and Kunlun Requiem, although they were extremely strange and attacked Ling Xiao's primordial spirit directly, they were all neutralized by his devouring heaven's secret skill. Ling Xiao held the immortal slaughter sword and faced Wu Xingchen, Ren Tianjue, and Dongfang Bai. Sword light flashed in all directions and sword chi shadows appeared in the void. Every time the Extreme Dao Emperor weapons clashed, it would trigger billions of divine lights. Rumble. In the 4-symbol sky formation, the Extreme Dao Emperor weapons swept across the void with extreme sharpness. The Extreme Dao Emperor aura gushed out and shrouded Ling Xiao, Wu Xingchen, and the others. Kill! Ling Zhao's eyes were indifferent as he pushed the immortal slaughter sword to the extreme. When it clashed with the true force sword, an unparalleled divine power erupted and sent Wu Xingchen flying. The yin-yang cauldron flew across the sky with yin and yang qi intertwined. The mouth of the cauldron seemed to contain a yin-yang realm that could absorb everything and destroy everything. Ling Xiao came with his sword and slashed out thousands of times in an instant. The sword qi shrouded the yin-yang cauldron and the sound of metal clashing could be heard. In the end, the yin-yang cauldron was sent flying. Dongfang Bai's body shook violently as his eyes were filled with horror. He had never thought that his cultivation was higher than Ling Zhao's and he had an extreme Dao Emperor weapon. However, he was still at a disadvantage and was suppressed by Ling Xiao. Rumble! The light beams that shot out from the arcade mirror were annihilated and quickly disintegrated in the slaughter domain around Ling Xiao. They could not even touch Ling Zhao's physical body. Ling Xiao held the immortal slaughter sword in one hand and performed an unparalleled fist print with the other. The vast fist will fill the heavens and earth, and every punch contained the power to shatter everything. Wu Xingchen, Dongfang Bai, and Ren Tianjue were all trembling as their blood boiled. Their faces turned pale. Ling Zhao's attacks were too fierce and overbearing. Although the three of them were powerful and had three extreme Dao Monarch weapons, they were unable to suppress Ling Xiao at all. Instead, Ling Xiao was getting stronger and stronger. The immortal slaughtering sword, the true force sword, the arcade mirror, and the yin-yang cauldron were entangled with each other. Each of their attacks unleashed an unparalleled radiance that swept across the void. Ling Zhao's entire body was surrounded by chaotic energy. The primordial immortal body was pushed to the extreme by him, and his entire body emitted an incomparably domineering aura. He chased after the stars and the moon. The immortal culling sword knocked away the true force sword. Unparalleled chaotic fist seals pressed down, causing Wu Xingchen's expression to change drastically. He felt that the void around him was filled with fist will, and he actually felt that there was no way to avoid it. Damn it! Wu Xingchen's face was pale, and he wanted to move away. However, he was unable to dodge Ling Zhao's punch. Boom! Wu Xingchen's body shook violently. His true martial emperor fist was annihilated. This fist landed on his chest, causing him to tremble all over. He was directly sent flying. He coughed up blood violently, and his eyes were filled with shock. Lei Ling, don't be so arrogant. Ren Tianjue shouted loudly. The arcade mirror in his hand shone with boundless light. Beams of light pierced through the void, intertwining to form a deadly domain, and enveloped Lei Ling. Break. Devour! Ling Xiao roared. The immortal culling sword instantly split into hundreds of millions of swords in the void, and met the beams of light head-on. All of them were annihilated at the same time. Rumble! Ling Zhao's entire body erupted with an imposing aura. He had pushed the heaven-devouring secret skill to the extreme. Chaotic light gushed out from his body, and a vast devouring vortex appeared. The devouring vortex rapidly expanded in the void. The surging immortal light and the powerful forces that intertwined in the sky were all devoured by Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao seemed to have transformed into an ancient ferocious beast. He charged forward as if he did not care about Wu Xingchen and the other three at all. Clang! The yin-yang cauldron trembled violently and was sent flying. Dongfang Bai's chest had been slashed by Ling Zhao's sword, and his blood was a mess. His entire body was pulled toward the devouring vortex as if he was going to be devoured completely. Bang! The notes of the Kunlun Requiem came to an abrupt end. Ling Zhao's fist landed on the Kunlun zither, causing the zither to emit a blazing light. Fang Qingxue was hit by the huge recoil and was sent flying. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Rumble! Ling Xiao took large strides like a shooting star, moving unhindered like a bolt of lightning. No one was his match. Wu Xingchen and Ren Tianjue were instantly enveloped by the fist prints that filled the sky. They roared angrily, but there was no way for them to resist. The huge fist prints landed on their chests, causing their chests to cave in. They spat out mouthfuls of blood, and their faces turned extremely pale. Crack! The terrifying devouring power around Ling Xiao grew stronger and stronger. In the end, even the Four Guardian Sky formation was directly torn apart. His body contained the power to destroy the heavens and earth. The four holy suns were actually so weak in front of him. Kill! Ling Xiao pointed his finger at Wu Xingchen. His finger radiance pierced through everything and headed for Wu Xingchen's forehead. It contained the power of great destruction. The finger radiance pierced through the void. It contained the power of time origin, causing Wu Xingchen to tremble. The time around him seemed to have frozen. His eyes were filled with terror as he felt the threat of death looming over him. Get lost! Wu Xingchen roared. He burned the essence blood in his body, trying to dodge Ling Xiao's finger. However, Ling Xiao's finger not only contained the power of his physical body, but also the supreme emperor technique of the flowing time emperor, time-destroying finger. The sharp finger radiance instantly pierced through Wu Xingchen's forehead and landed on his indestructible primordial spirit. Bang! Wu Xingchen's indestructible primordial spirit shattered. Ling Xiao grabbed at the air and pulled out a strange Dao fruit from Wu Xingchen's indestructible primordial spirit. It was the Dao fruit of true martial great path's origin. Ling Xiao had forcibly extracted it. Boom! Wu Xingchen's body was torn apart. His entire body exploded in the void. Not even his bones were left. His soul was scattered. Ling Xiao merged the Dao fruit into his primordial spirit's sea of consciousness. He then used the sky-devouring secret skill to refine it. He's the first. All of you must die. Ling Xiao sneered. His voice was like thunder, shaking the souls of those who heard it. Ren Tianjue, Dong Fangbai, and Fang Qingshue's expressions changed drastically. Their eyes were filled with terror. Wu Xingchen, the saint of true martial immortal sect, was killed by Ling Xiao just like that? Something big was about to happen. Chapter 3029. What Wu Xingchen cultivated was the true martial great Dao. He had comprehended the origin of the true martial great Dao. The true martial great Dao was to enter the immortal Dao through the martial Dao. It contained countless martial arts techniques and countless martial Dao insights. It contained the most fundamental martial Dao consciousness. After Ling Xiao devoured the fruit of the true martial way, a torrent of information immediately surged into his mind. Countless martial comprehensions merged with his soul. True martial emperor fist, myriad Dao killing fist, imperial tyrant fist, sovereign descends the world, myriad sword art, heavenly blade slash. Ling Xiao sensed countless powerful martial Dao divine abilities and comprehensions. These were Wu Xingchen's lifetime of martial Dao comprehension. He had entered the immortal Dao from the martial Dao and achieved the true martial great Dao, forming the true martial Dao fruit. Ling Xiao could feel that Wu Xingchen's strength was indeed very strong. This was a peerless genius who was born for the martial Dao. He had an incomparably strong fighting instinct. He had killed his way out from being a weakling and finally became the saint's son of the true martial immortal sect. He was even nurtured as the future patriarch of the true martial immortal sect. It could be said that as long as Wu Xingchen did not die, he would definitely become a peerless immortal monarch in the future. He would be able to control the true martial immortal sect and become a supreme expert of his generation. Unfortunately, the gap between him and Ling Xiao was too great. Although he was 2 small realms higher than Ling Xiao, Ling Xiao's primordial immortal body and chaotic divine bone were so powerful that it made people feel hopeless. Other than an extreme Dao Emperor weapon, ordinary immortal weapons would not be able to cause any harm to Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's physical body was invincible. It had already formed a suppressive force. Even though Ling Xiao had yet to condense his source body, his fist intent had already reached the point of being engulfed. It was as vast as the sea, as if the great emperor had come back to life, covering the sky and covering the earth. Wu Xingchen could not even take a single punch from him. Therefore, even though Wu Xingchen was very strong, he still died in the hands of Ling Xiao. The Zhen Wu sword trembled slightly and emitted a blazing light. Extreme Emperor's aura gushed out of the void. In an instant, it broke through the void and left the celestial demon grotto. Wu Xingchen was not the master of the true force sword. After his death, the true force sword would naturally return to its true master. Ling Xiao did not stop him. With his current cultivation, he was not strong enough to forcefully snatch the supreme emperor weapon and erase the original owner's imprint. Ling Xiao's gaze was incomparably sharp. His body contained an extremely terrifying power. Especially after devouring the Zhen Wu fruit, his battle instincts had become even stronger. Due to Wu Xingchen's death, Ren Tianjue, Dong Fangbai, and Fang Qingshue's faces were extremely pale. Their eyes were filled with horror. Ling Xiao's powerful pressure covered the sky and covered the earth, causing their minds to tremble. They had almost lost the will to fight. Wu Xingchen is already dead. Lei Ling is too ruthless and has already turned into a demon. Let's go and ask Senior Brother Tuan to come and slay this demon. Ren Tianjue gritted his teeth. He instantly soared into the sky and chose to escape. Dong Fangbai and Fang Qingshue's expressions changed as well. After hearing Ren Tianjue's words, they no longer hesitated and chose to flee in all directions. Kill! Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He let out a thunderous roar and took a step forward. In an instant he was tens of thousands of feet away as he charged towards Ren Tianjue. Feeling the terrifying murderous intent behind him, Ren Tianjue's expression changed drastically. He was about to curse in his heart. That bastard Lei Ling did not chase after Dong Fangbai and Fang Qingshue. Instead, he focused all his attention on Ren Tianjue. In particular, Ren Tianjue felt that Ling Xiao's speed was even faster than his. The distance between the two of them was constantly being pulled closer. Lei Ling, get out of my way! Ren Tianjue shouted in exasperation. Boom! The arcade mirror in his hand bloomed with boundless light. Auspicious qi rose and thousands of rays of immortal light intertwined and shot towards Ling Xiao. He did not expect to kill Ling Xiao. He only hoped to slow down Ling Xiao's speed. Clang! The immortal slaying sword shone with unparalleled light. Rays of sword qi traversed the void. Ling Xiao held the immortal slaying sword and attacked the rays of light. At the same time, he did not slow down and continued to chase after Ren Tianjue. Ren Tianjue, take my punch! Ling Xiao's speed suddenly increased. In an instant, he was within 100,000 feet of Ren Tianjue. Then he threw out a punch. A majestic fist essence gushed out. The chaotic divine bone in front of Ling Xiao's chest spewed out chaotic light. His punch was infused with the power of the chaotic secret skill. It was as if it could split the heavens and earth apart. It instantly enveloped Ren Tianjue. There was no way to avoid this punch. Ren Tianjue was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. His eyes were filled with shock and anger. He did not dare to take Ling Xiao's punch head-on. The arcade mirror in his hand instantly soared into the sky and met Ling Xiao's punch head-on. Crack! The void shook violently. Ling Xiao's punch landed on the arcade mirror. This was the first time Ling Xiao had used his bare hands to fight against an extreme Dao Emperor weapon. The rays of light that shot out from the arcade mirror were extremely terrifying. They instantly tore his flesh and blood apart. His fist was badly mutilated, revealing his crystal-clear bones. Clang! Ling Xiao's bones let out a buzzing sound. There was an immortal glow that rippled out. It was extremely mysterious. Although his flesh and blood could not withstand the power of the arcade mirror, his bones were extremely sturdy. Even the arcade mirror could not destroy them. The unparalleled fist essence exploded. The peerless punch that was infused with the chaotic secret skill seemed to be able to destroy everything. It caused the arcade mirror to tremble slightly before it was sent flying. Ha! An extreme Dao Emperor weapon is only SOS. Ling Xiao's eyes were filled with an extremely powerful fighting spirit. His aura became more and more terrifying. Ren Tianjue's face was filled with cold sweat. He became extremely pale and his eyes were filled with disbelief. What did he just see? Lei Ling actually used his flesh and blood to fight against an extreme Dao Emperor weapon. How was this possible? The last bit of fighting spirit in Ren Tianjue's heart disappeared. He instantly burned his life force and increased his speed. He wanted to escape. He did not want to see Lei Ling again. It was too terrifying. However, Ling Xiao did not plan to let him go. He also used the shifting secret skill. It was as if he was shuttling through the void. The surrounding scene became extremely illusory. The distance between him and Ren Tianjue was rapidly shortened. The four saints were the peerless sky prides of the immortal sex. Each of them was extremely powerful and had all sorts of trump cards. If Ling Xiao had not taken them by surprise and unleashed his ultimate power to kill Wu Xingchen in the Four Guardian Sky formation, it would be difficult to kill the four of them, especially when they were focused on escaping. Ling Xiao could not kill Ren Tianjue, Dongfang Bai, and Fang Qingxue. He could only choose to kill one of them. Ren Tianjue was naturally the best choice. Chapter 30:30. Lei Ling, why are you always going against me? Dongfang Bai and Fang Qingxue are so weak. Why don't you go after them? Ren Tianjue roared at Ling Xiao as he shifted frantically. Damn it, Ling Xiao. Why should I chase after you? Of course, it's because we have a grudge. Ling Xiao sneered. His eyes were as cold as steel. He was determined to kill Ren Tianjue. Ren Tianjue should be cultivating the star Dao. I already have 14 Dao fruits. The 9 major immortal sects represent 9 Dao fruits. This is the best opportunity for me to obtain Dao fruits. Therefore, I'll kill all these immortals in the immortal demon grotto. Ling Xiao thought to himself. Ever since his devouring secret technique condensed the devouring Dao fruit, Ling Xiao had discovered his own path, the path of Dao fusion. The stronger the Dao fusion and the more Dao fruits he fused, the stronger his strength would be. If he could eventually fuse the 3000 Dao fusion, Ling Xiao would definitely embark on a supreme path that no one had ever taken before. When Ling Xiao was refining the devouring immortal emperor's Dao fruit, he had sensed the aura of several other Dao fruits. Perhaps, immortal emperor devouring had also embarked on this path. However, the devouring Dao was only one of the 3000 Dao fusion. It was a heaven-defying act to fuse the devouring Dao with other Dao origins. However, Ling Xiao was different. He had the wordless heavenly book and the creation jade disc. These 2 chaos treasures contained the secrets of heaven and earth. The creation jade disc, in particular, was said to contain 3000 Dao fusion. With these 2 treasures, Ling Xiao could devour other Dao fruits without any scruples. However, others could not. Therefore, Ling Xiao's path was destined to be different from others. This was a peerless path that could sweep away all enemies. Bolts of lightning flashed around Ling Xiao's body. It was as if there was an endless amount of lightning gathering around him. He slammed his palm out in the air, and the sky and earth turned upside down. Billions of bolts of lightning gathered to form a peerless heavenly punishment force that pressed down on Ren Tianjue. Heavenly Punishment's secret technique. After comprehending the Heavenly Punishment origin and condensing the Heavenly Punishment Dao fruit, the Heavenly Punishment secret arts could truly shine. This attack was not inferior to a Supreme Monarch art at all. Ren Tianjue's expression changed greatly. He spat out a mouthful of blood essence on the arcade mirror, causing it to shine brightly. It instantly soared into the sky and blocked the Heavenly Punishment. Boom! Boundless divine light bloomed, and a vast heavenly might erupted, causing the arcade mirror to tremble violently. Even Ren Tianjue, who was controlling the arcade mirror, trembled violently and slowed down. In the next moment, Ling Xiao rapidly approached Ren Tianjue and threw a punch at him. Damn it! Ren Tianjue was shocked and furious at the same time. He felt his scalp going numb as he knew that he wouldn't be able to block Ling Xiao's punch with his own strength. Thus, he quickly recalled the arcade mirror to block Ling Xiao's punch. Clang! Sword Qi hummed as the immortal culling sword unleashed boundless sword Qi. It instantly traversed the void, pierced through the world, and slashed at the arcade mirror. The collision of the 2 extreme Dao Emperor weapons instantly set off a storm. Terrifying extreme Dao Emperor aura spread out as if it could shatter everything. Ling Xiao's punch was also ruthlessly thrown at Ren Tianjue. Ren Tianjue roared furiously as he unleashed all of his strength to block the attack. However, a crisp sound was heard as Ling Xiao's punch directly blasted Ren Tianjue's arms apart. Then, without losing any momentum, the punch landed on Ren Tianjue's chest. Boom! Ren Tianjue's body burst out with dazzling immortal light as he was sent flying. Dense cracks like a spider web appeared on his body. Before Ren Tianjue could do anything, Ling Xiao came across the sky again and pointed at Ren Tianjue's glabella. Secret space-time technique. Age-extinguishing finger. The two supreme treasure techniques burst forth. Ling Xiao seemed to have transformed into a supreme emperor who could control time and space. His eyes were extremely cold as an invincible aura gushed out from his body. Ren Tianjue's eyes were filled with horror as the surrounding time and space seemed to have frozen. He could only watch as Ling Xiao's finger touched the space between his eyebrows. Bloody light filled the air. The sharp finger radiance contained a vitality that could destroy everything, causing Ren Tianjue's entire body to explode. Even the indestructible primordial spirit in his sea of consciousness was unable to escape. It was directly shattered. Ling Xiao reached out and grabbed a dazzling Dao fruit that was filled with starlight from Ren Tianjue's head. The star Dao fruit that was stained with blood looked dazzling and dreamy as if countless stars were twinkling and converging into a dazzling galaxy. It is indeed the star Dao fruit. Ling Xiao took a deep breath as his eyes shone brightly. Boom! An incomparably powerful devouring force erupted from his body. A vortex of devouring appeared between his eyebrows. Ling Xiao sent the star Dao fruit into his forehead, and it was immediately devoured. Then he began to slowly refine it. The Alcade Immortal sect originally walked the great Tao of stars. Legend had it that they had obtained the orthodoxy of an ancient Alcade great emperor. That was how the Alcade Immortal sect came into existence today. In addition to the great Tao of stars, there were many other minor Taos in the Alcade Immortal sect. They were all branches of the great Tao of stars. Only by condensing the star Dao fruit could one become the saint of the Alcade Immortal sect. For example, although Ren Xiaoyao's cultivation was only at the first heaven of the immortal monarch realm, he had condensed the star Dao fruit and became the saint of the Alcade Immortal sect just like Ren Tianjue. Now that Ren Tianjue had been killed by Ling Xiao, the star Dao fruit had also fallen into his hands. This is the 15th Dao fruit. Next, let's start the slaughter. Ling Xiao's eyes shone brightly as he exuded a majestic fighting spirit. Boom! The surrounding Zhou Tian shook and the mountains shook. Countless birds and beasts in the forest were alarmed and fled into the distance. Ling Xiao chased after Ren Tianjue and unknowingly left the forest of life. After Ren Tianjue's death, the Alcade mirror naturally broke through the boundary and left. After devouring the star Dao fruit, Ling Xiao began to spread his divine consciousness and flew into the distance, searching for traces of the immortals. This immortal demon great meat was originally a slaughter meat, a battle between the immortals and the immortals. In the past, the immortals and immortals who came out of the immortal demon grotto could be said to be less than 1 in 100. It was extremely tragic, and most of the people who died were from the immortals. Now that Ling Xiao had entered the immortal demon grotto, he naturally wanted to change the immortals' previous state and help them win this battle. From now on, he would hunt down the immortals. Ling Xiao was like a bolt of lightning, instantly soaring into the sky. He did not conceal his aura. Dazzling divine light burst out and swept across the void, causing countless demonic beasts and powerful birds to avoid Ling Xiao. Although those demonic beasts did not have intelligence, they had powerful instincts and could sense that Ling Xiao was not to be trifled with. Therefore, Ling Xiao became the overlord of this world. However, what Ling Xiao did not know was that his killing of Wu Xingqian and Ren Tianjue had caused a powerful storm outside the immortal demon grotto. Chapter 30-31. Outside the immortal demon cave. Qi Lin, the supreme elder of the true martial immortal sect, looked gloomy and his eyes were filled with killing intent. In front of him, 16 of the life tokens representing the 60 disciples of the true martial immortal sect were shattered. These 16 life tokens represented the 16 disciples of the true martial immortal sect, which meant that all 16 disciples of the true martial immortal sect were dead. Most importantly, the life token of the Holy Sun, Wu Xingqian, was among them. Wu Xingchen was also dead. The true martial sword trembled slightly and flew back to Qi Lin. This was the supreme emperor weapon that the true martial immortal sect had given to Wu Xingchen for self-defense. Who is it? Who killed Wu Xingchen? Qi Lin's hair and beard stood on end as the fury in his eyes seemed to be on the verge of bursting out. An extremely terrifying aura erupted from his body, causing the surrounding space to tremble. Qi Lin was a genuine high-level immortal duke. Although he had yet to reach the level of a supreme immortal duke, his strength was already extremely terrifying. Everyone looked at Qi Lin with eyes full of sympathy. No one had expected the true martial immortal sect to be in such a miserable state. They had just entered the immortal demon cave for less than a day and so many experts had already fallen. Wu Xingchen and all the disciples of the immortal lords had fallen. The remaining people were just small fries. This meant that the true martial immortal sect was likely to be wiped out. Gu Tongtun, was it Lei Ling from the ancient god sect who did it? Among the 6 major divine sects, only he has the strength to kill Wu Xingchen. Qi Lin's body trembled as he looked at Gu Tongtian and asked in a cold voice. Gu Tongtian's expression was indifferent and calm. After hearing Qi Lin's words, he said flatly, "In the immortal demon cave, it's up to fate. Either you live or you die. Let's not talk about whether Lei Ling killed Wu Xingchen. Even if he did, so what? If Lei Ling killed Wu Xingchen, the true martial immortal sect will not let him go." Qi Lin roared. He felt like his heart was bleeding. He didn't know how to explain this to the sect leader. If the other disciples died, then so be it. But Wu Xingchen was a peerless genius who had comprehended the true martial great Tao. He was the focus of the true martial immortal sect. If he died in the immortal devil cave, it would be a huge blow to the true martial immortal sect. Fellow Taoist Qi, calm down. That Lei Ling is truly vicious. I think it's very likely that he killed Wu Xingchen. However, he's in the immortal demon cave right now. We can't do anything to him. Everything will be clear once he gets out of the cave. The Alcade Immortal Sect's Fekta Immortal Lord smiled and advised. The Fekta Immortal Monarch was a refined middle-aged man. He wore a starry Taoist robe and had a slender figure. His temperament was otherworldly and there was a faint smile on his face. His cultivation base was also at the high-level immortal monarch realm. The 60 life tokens in front of him were all intact. This meant that the disciples of the Alcade Immortal Sect were all safe. Seeing that so many powerful disciples of the true martial immortal sect had fallen, he was gloating in his heart. He was incomparably proud, but on the surface, he did not show it. Calm down. The one who died is the true martial immortal sect's holy son, not your Alcade Immortal Sect's holy son. Of course, you're not worried. If Lei Ling dares to leave the immortal demon cave, I won't let him off. Qi Lin did not appreciate the Fekta Immortal Lord's words and sneered. At this moment, an extremely crisp sound was heard. Everyone from the 9 major immortal sects shuddered and quickly looked over. Instantly, a strange look appeared in everyone's eyes. Even Qi Lin was momentarily stunned as he looked behind the Fekta Immortal Lord. What's going on? When the Fekta Immortal Lord saw Qi Lin's gaze, he instantly felt that something was amiss and quickly turned around. The smile on his face froze instantly. In the next moment, monstrous anger erupted and his eyes were filled with disbelief and anger. Among the 60 life tokens of the Alcade Immortal Sect, the one that represented Rintianjue had shattered. Soon, a dazzling light broke through the void and flew out of the immortal demon cave. It appeared before the Fekta Immortal Lord and emitted dazzling immortal light. It was the Alcade Mirror. Rintianjue's life token had shattered and the Alcade Mirror had flown out of the immortal demon cave. This meant that Rintianjue had fallen. The Fekta Immortal Lord could no longer smile. He had been gloating earlier, but now he was filled with rage. The Bachelor of the Alcade Immortal Sect had fallen as well. It's Lei Ling. It must be Lei Ling who killed Rintianjue and Gu Tongtian. The Fekta Immortal Lord's eyes were bloodshot. He turned around abruptly and glared at Gu Tongtian, his eyes filled with rage. He could not think of anyone else who could kill Rintianjue. After all, the bachelor of the 9 major immortal sects were extremely powerful and far surpassed the bachelor of the 6 major immortal sects. Other than Lei Ling, who else could pose a threat to them? The bachelor and saintess of the 9 major immortal sects were all nurtured by the 9 major immortal sects. This time, they were allowed to enter the Immortal Demon Cave and participate in the Immortal Demon Conference as a form of training and preparation for the expedition to the Eternal Emperor Road. In their opinion, it was impossible for the bachelor and saintess of the 9 major immortal sects to die. It did not matter if a few ordinary disciples died. But who would have thought that Ren Tianjue and Wu Xingchen would fall in less than a day after the Immortal Demon Cave opened? Seeing the Fekta Immortal Lord's gaze, Gu Tongtian sneered and said, "It's fine if the disciples of the Alcade Immortal Sect die. But do you want to fight me?" Gu Tongtian's eyes revealed a trace of domineering and sharp sword light as he pierced towards the Fekta Immortal Lord. The Fekta Immortal Lord trembled. He felt as though there was a supreme divine sword that pierced through the heavens and the earth. It was so terrifying that he could not help but take a few steps back. It was only then that he remembered that Gu Tongtian was already a peerless, ferocious person 10,000 years ago. Gu Tongtian, if Ren Tianjue dies in the hands of Lei Ling, Senior Brother Sect Master will seek an explanation from you. The Fekta Immortal Lord said coldly. He put up a strong front and said some harsh words, but still chose to retreat. "You have no balls." Gu Tongtian sneered. Instantly, the Fekta Immortal Lord flew into a rage, but he did not dare to provoke Gu Tongtian again. The successive deaths of Wu Xingchen and Ren Tianjue caused the supreme elders of the other 7 major immortal sects to change their expressions. Among the 9 major saints and saintesses, Taiwan was publicly acknowledged as the strongest. Jinxin's combat strength was also extremely strong. However, other than the 2 of them, the others were on par with Ren Tianjue and Wu Xingchen. Even if they were stronger, they would not be much stronger. In that case, wouldn't they be in danger of dying as well? For a moment, the people of the 9 major immortal sects looked at the 6 major immortal sects with less relaxed expressions and became incomparably solemn. It seemed that there would be a variable in this Immortal Demon Conference. And Lei Ling was the biggest variable. Chapter 30-32. 3 days. Ling Xiao had already wandered around the Immortal Devil Cave for 3 days, and he had already explored the area within a radius of 1,000,000 miles. In these 3 days he had only met 2 disciples of the true martial immortal sect and 4 disciples of the Alcade Immortal Sect. All of them had died in his hands. However, other than that, the people from the 9 major immortal sects seemed to have disappeared into thin air. He had no idea where they had gone. Ling Xiao had not even met a single disciple from the 6 major immortal sections. Could it be that they have entered some kind of ruin? Ling Xiao frowned as he thought to himself. Entering the Immortal Demon Cave was a random teleportation. Logically speaking, he should have met a few disciples from the 6 major immortal sections. However, he had not sensed Zhang Qin, Wu Hen, and the rest. He could not help but suspect that something had happened in the Immortal Demon Cave. The Immortal Demon Cave was vast and boundless. However, there were few people in the forbidden areas that the Immortal Tribe and Divine Tribe frequented. In fact, there were no signs of a battle. The Immortal Demon Cave is a little strange. When Ling Xiao returned to the Forest of Life, he had a serious expression on his face. Ling Xiao realized that the traces of his battle with Wu Xingchen and Ren Tianjue had all disappeared. It was as if they had been erased by some kind of power. Although Ling Xiao had taken Wu Xingchen and Ren Tianjue's Dao fruits, he had not touched their flesh and blood. At this moment, Ling Xiao realized that the flesh, torn clothes, and immortal weapons had all disappeared. Moreover, the strange power that devoured life in the Forest of Life had not completely disappeared. It was just weaker than before. The surroundings were very quiet. The leaves on the ground were very thick. Sunlight seeped in through the gaps between the leaves, making the surroundings very quiet. However, this kind of silence made Ling Xiao shudder even though it was not cold. The uneasiness in Ling Xiao's heart grew stronger. He immediately leaped into the sky. He stepped into the void and looked at the world. Silence. What Ling Xiao felt was an incomparable silence. Those originally powerful ferocious beasts, and even all the powerful flying beasts in the air, had all disappeared without a trace. It was as if they had sensed that a storm was coming. Those beasts had all gone into hiding. This situation was not right. Ling Xiao suddenly felt a strong sense of danger surging into his heart. However, the surroundings were incomparably calm, and Ling Xiao couldn't tell where the danger was coming from. However, the sense of crisis was getting stronger and stronger. That feeling was like sinking into a muddy swamp, sinking bit by bit. There was no other way but to gradually welcome death. Following that, before Ling Xiao could do anything, he saw an incomparably shocking scene. The heaven and earth in front of him, the mountains and rivers in the distance, and even the surrounding void, everything in Ling Xiao's line of sight was slowly fusing into one. It was as if it had been flattened and turned into a flat surface, as if it had been drawn by someone. Then, it gently floated down. Ling Xiao was instantly unable to move. Even though his mind wasn't affected at all, he could feel that his body, his primordial spirit, his fine hairs, and his entire body had stopped moving. It was as if he wanted to merge into the scroll. This was the sense of crisis. Rumble. Ling Xiao activated all his cultivation without hesitation. The 15 Dao fruits were like dazzling stars, blooming with endless light in his primordial spirit's sea of consciousness, providing him with endless power. At the same time, Ling Xiao also activated the wordless heavenly book and the creation jade disc. His aura became incomparably terrifying as he tried to break free from the strange binding force around him. Ling Xiao could move again, although it was still very slow. However, he seemed to be separated from the scroll. Bit by bit, he wormed his way out of the scroll and finally exploded with a loud bang. Ling Xiao's eyes were filled with dazzling light. It was a vast expanse of whiteness, like a chaotic space. Nothing could be seen clearly. After a series of upheavals, everything fell silent. Ling Xiao suddenly fell with a loud bang, smashing hard into the incomparably hard ground. Then Ling Xiao saw a scene that shocked him to the core. The heaven and earth of the immortal demon grotto, the void, the mountains and rivers, and everything else formed a mysterious scroll. Everything became flat, forming a leaf that danced in the air. A huge ancient tree appeared in front of Ling Xiao's eyes. The tree took root in the chaos and was surrounded by chaotic mist. It was mysterious and auspicious, with luxuriant branches and leaves. The crown of the tree was like a dome, blotting out the sun. Above the leaves, there was a devouring force. Mysterious scenes of worlds appeared one after another. It was as if countless worlds were evolving. It was extremely mysterious. Ling Xiao appeared in an incomparably vast space. There was no space, no time, and nothing in the world around him. There wasn't even any great Tao laws. Just like that, Ling Xiao suddenly appeared under the ancient tree. He still couldn't move, but his thoughts weren't restricted. He could see that the leaves on the ancient tree were like ancient worlds. As for those tree branches, they were the passageways between the worlds, connecting the endless worlds. It was a very strange feeling. It was as if he'd jumped out of the world's prison and seen everything in the universe. Ling Xiao suddenly had a feeling in his heart. Jumping out of the 3 realms and not within the 5 elements. That was the feeling he had now. He was looking at everything in the universe in an incomparably strange state. The trunk of the ancient tree seemed to have turned into an incomparably huge road in Ling Xiao's eyes. It pierced through billions of worlds, through the chaotic void, and through the river of time. It was eternal and immortal. The trunk led to an unknown space. There seemed to be an incomprehensibly magnificent scene there. Could this tree be what we call the myriad realms, or perhaps the universe? Ling Xiao's heart trembled. He was shocked like never before. It felt like countless years had passed, but also like a moment. Ling Xiao sat under the ancient tree and watched the leaves of the ancient tree turn yellow and fall. Then, new shoots sprouted again, emitting boundless vitality. A leaf, a world. Could it be that a falling leaf represents the great tribulation of an era? Ling Xiao's eyes revealed a look of enlightenment. He felt like he'd gone through 4 seasons here. The ancient tree also appeared in 4 different strange states. The ancient tree emitted vitality, sprouted new buds, and grew into leaves. The ancient tree was verdant and lush, blooming to the extreme. Then, it gradually withered and the leaves slowly fell off, finally landing at the roots of the tree. The leaves collapsed and merged with the roots. All traces were erased as if they had never existed. Only the huge trunk continued to soar into the sky as if it was accumulating energy to break through the boundless restrictions. Leaves grew and fell. Then it was another cycle. P.S. Let me give you a preview. It will explode tomorrow. At least 10 chapters, strive for 15. The book is in the later stages, so it's slow to write. There are only 2 chapters a day. Please forgive me. Also, you can add my work account and search for my name, Sunset Rain Celestial Sky. If you have any questions, you can ask me directly. I will also post some extras and plot content. Thank you. Chapter 30-33. After an unknown period of time, the ancient tree in front of Ling Xiao seemed to have gone through a reincarnation cycle before slowly disappearing in front of Ling Xiao's eyes. The scene in front of Ling Xiao changed, and he appeared in the immortal demon grotto once again. He was still in the sky above the forest of life. The forest of life below was verdant and lush, containing boundless vitality. At the same time, it also nurtured countless powerful beasts, whose roars shook the sky and reverberated through the forest. Was that an illusion just now? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed as he thought to himself. However, he felt that it wasn't an illusion. It was a scene that truly existed. The wordless heavenly book and the jade plate of fortune in his body still showed signs of being activated. Even the life origin in his body had been greatly depleted. The boundless vitality that Ling Xiao had obtained from the heart of the devouring immortal emperor was now almost depleted. Did I unintentionally break free from the shackles of this universe and transcend the great Tao to see the most realistic scene? The so-called myriad heavens and realms are just countless leaves on a tree? Ling Xiao's heart trembled. This thought was hard to believe, but it also seemed to make sense. To an ant, perhaps a small puddle was a vast ocean, and a slope was a towering mountain range. The scene that he had just seen shocked Ling Xiao immensely, as if his primordial spirit had been elevated. Or, is that the power of transcendence? Ling Xiao's heart trembled as if he had thought of something. Legend had it that the peak of the great emperor was the path of transcendence. It was a power that transcended the great Tao, the myriad heavens and realms, and the universe. Ling Xiao vaguely felt that perhaps he had just unintentionally discovered a great secret. No matter what, that power isn't something that I can touch right now. Why does the immortal demon grotto have such a strange power? Is it because this is the place of the great emperor battle? At the same time, Ling Xiao's heart was filled with doubts. He had wandered around the immortal demon grotto for 3 days and hadn't found the whereabouts of the divine race and immortal tribe. He had even accidentally entered that strange space. In that space, whether it was the immortal demon grotto or the myriad heavens and realms, everything seemed to have become a leaf that was presented clearly in front of him. Could it be that the god race and the immortal race had also entered that space? Ling Xiao felt that perhaps they were just affected, but they probably wouldn't jump out of the 3 realms like he did. After all, Ling Xiao had unleashed the power of 2 chaos cardinal treasures in order to achieve this. No matter what, that scene had been deeply imprinted in Ling Xiao's mind, leaving an indelible impression. Is there an immortal aura in the distance? A gleam of light flashed through Ling Xiao's eyes. He immediately sensed the sounds of battle in the distance. He immediately withdrew his aura and teleported over. At the edge of the forest of life, 3 to 5 immortal powerhouses in Taoist robes were attacking a fiery red lion. Once we kill this supreme flame lion king and obtain its inner core, we will have gathered the last fire element inner core of the 5 elemental treasures. The person in the lead was a young man in a black robe who held an immortal sword in his hand. His face was cold and arrogant, and his aura was peerlessly powerful. His cultivation had already reached the 2nd heaven of the immortal monarch realm, while the remaining 4 were all immortal venerables. Congratulations, second young master. With the 5 elemental treasures, we will be able to open the relic and kill all the god race members who are hiding there. A few immortal venerables beside him complimented him. That's right. Everyone, let's work harder. This Supreme Flame Lion King is about to die. The black-robed young man shouted coldly. Rumble. Sword chi swept across, and the dazzling divine light seemed to be able to destroy everything. Under the siege of the 5 powerhouses, the Supreme Flame Lion King's body was covered with wounds. In the end, he let out a sorrowful cry. His forehead was pierced through, and his primordial spirit was destroyed. Bang! The corpse of the Supreme Flame Lion King fell heavily on the ground, breaking a few towering ancient trees. It let out a violent roar like a small mountain. The black-robed young man held the immortal sword and cut open the abdomen of the Supreme Flame Lion King. He then took out a dazzling red inner core that was surrounded by dazzling flames. It was the inner core of the Supreme Flame Lion King. After seeing the inner core, the few immortal venerables couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Their eyes were burning with passion. The inner core contained incomparably pure flame origin. If they could refine it and slowly comprehend it, it wouldn't take long for them to break through to the immortal realm. Let's go. This time, we must kill all those despicable god race members. The black-robed young man kept the inner core and sneered. But at this moment, they saw a person appear behind them. For you. The black-robed young man's eyes flashed as he shouted coldly. The person who stood in front of them was naturally Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao said indifferently, I heard that you are looking for the members of the god race? Great, I'm also looking for them. Why don't you bring me there? You're courting death. You're also from the god race? An ant-like thing dares to block this young master's path? Scram. The black-robed young man's eyes flashed with killing intent. He thrust the immortal sword in his hand towards Ling Xiao's glabella. When the 4 people behind the black-robed young man saw Ling Xiao, their faces changed. They immediately recognized Ling Xiao's identity and exclaimed, Second young master, be careful. He is Lei Ling of the ancient god sect. Even Ren Tianjue was defeated by him with a single punch. However, they were too late. The black-robed young man's immortal sword was already in front of Ling Xiao's glabella. Clang. Ling Xiao stretched out 2 fingers and caught the immortal sword. The sword chi was annihilated, and the immortal sword buzzed and shook the void. The black-robed young man's face changed. He felt that Ling Xiao was like a desolate giant beast that possessed endless power. He couldn't pull the immortal sword out when it was caught by Ling Xiao. Young people are really hot-tempered. You won't listen to me when I'm talking nicely. Do you really want me to attack you? Ling Xiao sighed softly as a sharp light flashed in his eyes. Rumble. There seemed to be a terrifying power erupting between his fingers. He shook his fingers and an unparalleled divine power erupted. Instantly, the immortal sword was shattered into pieces. He threw a punch in the air. The black-robed young man's face changed drastically. He felt that Ling Xiao had turned from a little lamb into a desolate giant beast. He exuded an unstoppable and invincible aura. Chapter 30-34. The black-robed young man instinctively stretched out his arms to block the attack. However, his arms were smashed by Ling Xiao's punch. He was sent flying with blood gushing out of his mouth. Lei Ling? You're the Lei Ling who defeated Ren Tianjue with a single punch? The second young master's eyes were filled with horror. The 4 men from the Celestial clan hurriedly helped the second young master up. At the same time, they unsheathed their weapons and stared at Ling Xiao warily. People from the Tai Yi Celestial sect? Tell me, where are the people from the 6 major divine sects? How are they doing now? Ling Xiao said indifferently. His body emitted an incomparably powerful aura that suppressed Yi Futin. These 5 men were all disciples of the Tai Yi Celestial sect. However, Ling Xiao found the second young master in the lead unfamiliar. He had never seen this person before. Lei Ling, how dare you attack me? Do you know who my elder brother is? My elder brother is Taiyuan. Apologize to me now. I'll forgive you as long as you apologize. The black-robed young man yelled at Ling Xiao fiercely. The 4 disciples of the Tai celestial sect beside him could not help but twitch their lips. Their second young master was too stupid to threaten Ling Xiao at this time. This guy dared to attack Ren Tianjue. Why would he give face to the Taiyuan saint? Moreover, the Taiyuan saint was not here. Taiyuan's younger brother? Looks like I've caught a big fish today. Not bad, not bad. Since you're so unyielding, I'll put in some effort and search your soul. Ling Xiao said with a faint smile as he walked toward the black-robed young man. Lei Ling, you can't attack the second young master. Otherwise, the Jin Saint won't let you go. Devour. The 4 disciples of the Tai celestial sect mustered up their courage and said. However, before they could finish their words, Ling Xiao waved his hand casually and swept them away. Ling Xiao walked up to the black-robed young man, reached out his hand, and grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up. The black-robed young man was finally afraid. His eyes were filled with terror. Lei Ling, let me go. You can't search my soul. I'll tell you everything you want to know. Let me go, you bastard. The black-robed young man half begged and half threatened. Interesting. Tell me. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. He felt that the black-robed young man was interesting, so he put him down. After the black-robed young man was put down by Ling Xiao, he did not wait for Ling Xiao to interrogate him. Like a bamboo tube filled with beans, he spilled everything. Ling Xiao's expression gradually became serious. With a. The disciples of the old god cult met the disciples of the heaven-reaching immortal sect by accident. They had a big fight, and then the disciples of the old god cult escaped into a relic. However, there was a powerful formation guarding the relic. Tai Xian was good at formations, so he knew that he needed the combination of the 5 elements treasure and the yin-yang treasure to break the formation. Therefore, Tai Xian came out to search for the 5 elements treasure, but he did not expect to meet Ling Xiao. Lei Ling, I didn't kill the disciples of the old god cult. They were killed by the disciples of the heaven-reaching immortal sect. When I arrived, they had already escaped into the relic. Tai Xian quickly explained. Why did you team up with the true martial immortal sect instead of staying with Taiyuan? Does he not worry about your safety? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed as he asked flatly. My big brother seems to have gone to explore the relic of a great emperor. He didn't have time to deal with me, so he let me train by myself. Anyway, no one dares to hurt me. Tai Xian glanced at Ling Xiao carefully after he finished speaking. But he did not think that he would actually encounter Ling Xiao, this malefic star. Is that true? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. Although he could feel that Tai Xian wasn't lying, he still felt that something wasn't right. It's true. Tai Xian never lie. Tai Xian quickly said. Very well. Take me to the relic. Ling Xiao said flatly. Lei Ling, you won't kill me, right? My big brother is Taiyuan. You can't kill me. As long as you let me go, I'll ask my big brother to spare your life. Tai Xian glanced at Ling Xiao and said. If you're obedient, I'll spare your life. Ling Xiao said with a faint smile. Alright, I'll take you there. Tai Xian gritted his teeth. Second young master, you can't trust him. A disciple of the Tai immortal sect hastily said. A cold light flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes as he pointed at the void. The light from his finger seemed to be able to penetrate everything. In an instant, it pierced through the glabella of the 4 disciples of the Tai immortal sect, destroying their primordial spirits. In Ling Xiao's eyes, immortal venerables were just ants that he could kill with a wave of his hand. Tai Xian couldn't help but shudder when he saw Ling Xiao killing the 4 disciples of the Tai immortal sect. He quickly got up and obediently led the way for Ling Xiao. This person was truly a peerless, ruthless person. Tai Xian didn't want to die here. However, it seemed like Ling Xiao was afraid of his big brother, Tai. That was why he didn't dare to kill him directly. Tai Xian was slightly relieved. He could only hope that Taiyuan could come quickly. The outside world was too terrifying. The divine race was indeed a group of ruthless people, just like the legend said. Under Tai Xian's lead, Ling Xiao followed him through a few mountains and finally entered a cave. After walking for tens of thousands of feet, the cave opened up. It was a completely different world inside. It seemed to be an incomparably secluded valley that couldn't be seen from the sky. The valley was incomparably vast and filled with exotic flowers and grasses. However, at this moment, it seemed like a great battle had taken place in the valley. There were severed limbs everywhere, and the smell of blood was incomparably strong. Not only were there experts of the immortal race, but there were also experts of the divine race. Dozens of disciples of the immortal race had cold eyes and powerful immortal weapons in their hands. They surrounded a dazzling void passage in the distance. They were all disciples of the Tai Yi immortal sect and the heaven-piercing immortal sect. When Tai Xian and Ling Xiao walked into the valley, everyone's eyes fell on them. Lei Ling! Everyone from the immortal tribe shuddered. Their eyes were filled with shock and fear. Chapter 30-35. 15 from Tai Yi Immortal Sect and 42 from Heaven Connecting Immortal Sect. The Sword Heart Saint isn't here? It seems like everyone is here except for the Sword Heart Saint. A hint of a smile appeared in Ling Xiao's eyes. A fierce battle had taken place in the valley. The deity clan had suffered heavy casualties, and the immortal clan had also lost some of their members. Taking a closer look, everyone was here except for the Sword Heart Saint of Heaven Connecting Immortal Sect. Ling Xiao exuded a piercingly cold killing intent. More than 30 disciples of the old god sect had died. Previously, they had respectfully addressed him as the god's son, but in the blink of an eye, they had been slaughtered by the immortal clan. Ling Xiao was still a step too late. Lei Ling, release the second young master now. Otherwise, the Tian Saint won't let you off. A young man from Tai Yi Immortal Sect who was at the second heaven of the monarch realm said coldly. His eyes were filled with shock and anger. He did not expect the second young master to fall into the hands of Lei Ling when he went out to look for the 5 elements treasure. Lei Ling, what are you trying to do? This is not a place where you can act presumptuously. Leave now. The leader of the Heaven Connecting Immortal Sect was a beautiful, cold, and arrogant woman in a long dress. She was like a celestial maiden, and her clothes were fluttering in the wind. She appeared fierce but was timid at heart. Her cultivation base was at the second heaven of the monarch realm. She was well aware of Ling Xiao's strength. Outside the immortal demon cave, Ling Xiao had defeated the saint of Alcade Immortal Sect, Ren Tianjue, with a single punch. In the past few days, there were even rumors that Ling Xiao had killed Wu Xingchen of the True Martial Immortal Sect and Ren Tianjue of the Alcade Immortal Sect. Although these 2 rumors had yet to be verified, Wu Xingchen and Ren Tianjue had never appeared again. Therefore, even though there were dozens of disciples from Tai Yi Immortal Sect and Heaven Connecting Immortal Sect here, they still felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Tai Xian, what do you think we should do? Ling Xiao smiled faintly, but his eyes were filled with intense killing intent. The immortal clan was always high and mighty. Perhaps their sense of superiority had made them forget the past glory of the deity clan. They were no longer as they were now, allowing them to kill them as they wished. It was impossible to reason with such people. It was better to destroy them all. When Tai Xian saw the look in Ling Xiao's eyes, his heart trembled. He hurriedly said, "God's child, these bastards deserve to die for provoking you. Lord Lei Ling, please kill them all." Tai Xian was completely afraid of Ling Xiao. The trauma Ling Xiao had left in his heart was too deep, so in order to save his own life, he did not care about anything else. Although there were disciples of the Tai Yi Immortal Sect here, Tai Xian couldn't care less about his friends. Second young master? The Celestial Duke from the Tai Yi Celestial Sect stared at Tai Xian in disbelief. Their second young master was actually like this? Smart, don't worry. You're so smart I won't kill you. Ling Xiao said with a smile. Then he sealed all of Tai Xian's cultivation and threw him aside. This so-called immortal devil gathering is just a joke. You immortals can hunt gods, so why can't gods hunt immortals? Today, I'll start with you. I'm going to kill all the immortals in the immortal demon cave. Ling Zhao's voice was incomparably cold. There was no emotion in his voice at all. He radiated with a monstrous killing intent that swept towards the group of immortals in a mighty manner. How dare you! You're courting death. The people from the Tai Celestial sect and the Heaven-Connecting Immortals sect were shocked and angry. They didn't expect Ling Xiao to attack so decisively. Devour! Was he really not afraid of the Taiyuan Saint's son and the Sword Heart Saint's son? The Taiyuan Saint's son and the Sword Heart Saint's son were the two most dazzling peerless geniuses among the 9 major immortal sections. They had even killed many powerful celestial dukes. Ling Xiao was just a first heaven celestial duke. Where did he get his confidence from? However, before they could think about it, Ling Xiao had already charged toward them. Rumble! Divine light rose around Ling Xiao, blazing and dazzling. Chaotic light gushed out of his chest like a dazzling sun. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were like lightning. He looked majestic and mysterious. He charged toward the immortals with his bare hands. Kacha! An unparalleled fist print swept across the surroundings. It contained an incomparably terrifying pressure, causing the expressions of the immortals to change drastically. Rumble! They could feel the great terror between life and death. Therefore, they didn't hesitate at all and chose to attack. Dozens of powerful immortal lights shot across the sky. They took out their powerful celestial artifacts and cast their powerful celestial techniques. It was an earth-shattering scene. However, the strongest among them were only 2nd Heavenly High Immortal Realm experts. The rest were only First Heaven Celestial Dukes, Celestial Primes, and Celestial Kings. Although the sudden attack was powerful, in Ling Zhao's opinion, it was simply too weak to withstand a single blow. Rumble! An unparalleled chaotic fist print exploded. It seemed to be able to shatter the heavens and sweep across the universe. In an instant, it drowned the immortal lights in the sky and blasted them into dust. The powerful celestial artifacts that the immortals were so proud of were shattered into pieces by Ling Zhao's fist print like scrap metal. They felt an unparalleled divine force sweeping toward them. It was as though they were struck by lightning. Their bodies trembled violently as they were sent flying. Dozens of immortals couldn't even withstand a single punch from Ling Xiao. Unparalleled fist intent swept out in a mighty manner. Ling Xiao seemed to have transformed into a supreme great emperor. He moved across the sun, the moon, and the stars. His body was surrounded by 3,000 worlds. No one was a match for him. Ling Xiao threw out a punch. An immortal duke from the Tai Immortal sect exploded. Blood mist filled the air, and his primordial spirit was blasted into countless pieces. Ling Zhao's speed was extremely fast. It was as though he was shuttling through the void. Several immortal venerables didn't even have the time to scream before they exploded in the void. Ling Xiao strode forward. Every step he took resonated with the heavens and earth. His powerful aura swept across the sky, setting off a bloody storm. In just a blink of an eye, more than half of the dozens of immortals were killed by Ling Xiao. Only a few immortal dukes from the Tai Immortal sect and the Heaven-Connecting Immortal sect were still resisting. However, it seemed like they wouldn't live for long. Ling Zhao's surroundings seemed to have formed a mysterious and terrifying domain, suppressing everyone's aura within. They couldn't even escape. After a few moments, everyone was killed by Ling Xiao. It's too terrifying. This malefic star is too terrifying. Fortunately, I pretended to be polite to him and didn't fight him head-on. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have ended up like him. Senior brothers and junior brothers, please don't blame me. When my brother comes, he'll definitely avenge all of you. Tai Xian, who was lying in the distance, trembled as he muttered to himself. His face was extremely pale. He was really frightened. Chapter 30-36. What are you talking to yourself about? Ling Xiao suddenly turned around and looked at Tai Xian coldly. Tai Xian trembled when he saw Ling Zhao's eyes. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants. No, nothing. I'm just saying that Lord Lei Ling is wise and powerful. How dare these bastards go against you? They deserve to die. Tai Xian squeezed out an ugly smile and complimented Ling Xiao softly. Ling Xiao ignored him and did not intend to kill him. Hence, he did not care about what Tai Xian said. He turned around and looked at the huge whirlpool passageway in the valley. Tai Xian heaved a sigh of relief. That was scary. Why is Lei Ling's gaze so scary? You can open the array in the relic? Ling Xiao's voice sounded and Tai Xian's heart skipped a beat. Yes, absolutely. This array is a yin-yang reversal 5 elements array. As long as there is a yin-yang 5 elements treasure to guard the array, we can enter. Tai Xian nodded quickly. He was afraid that Ling Xiao would think that he was useless and blow him up with a punch. Great. Come on. Ling Xiao said flatly. He then pointed at the air and released the cultivation seal on Tai Xian. Tai Xian ran toward the whirlpool passageway. First, he took out 5 glowing inner cores. They were 5 different colors and glowed brightly. They were the 5 elemental inner cores that he had obtained from the 5 ferocious beasts he had killed earlier. Then, he took out a black and white bead reluctantly. The bead was only the size of a longan, but it was shrouded in yin and yang light. There seemed to be layers of void in it that reflected the boundless world. It's the yin-yang origin bead? Ling Xiao was slightly surprised. The yin-yang origin bead was not a weapon but a top-notch treasure. It could even be used as a base to refine an emperor weapon. The yin-yang origin bead contained the essence of yin and yang. It had been nurtured in the land of yin and yang for countless years. In the end, extreme yang gave birth to yin, and extreme yin gave birth to yang. When yin and yang converged and returned to the origin, it became a supreme treasure. Ling Xiao did not expect this guy to have the yin-yang origin bead. This yin-yang origin bead is mine. Ling Xiao said flatly. Tai Xian's face stiffened and he felt his heart bleeding. This was a treasure that would help him in the future. The entire Tai Yi Immortal sect did not have a second one origin bead. But what could he do? Did he dare to refuse? This maleficent Ling was going to kill him. Although Tai Xian was unwilling, he had no choice but to do so. The yin-yang origin bead is very suitable for the jints. It can become the supreme treasure of the jints. In the future, it can even form the yin-yang realm. If other extreme materials are added, it will definitely become a top-notch extreme monarch weapon. It might even surpass the yin-yang Tai Chi diagram. Who would have thought that not killing Tai Xian would give him such a surprise? He took a deep breath, and then his eyes instantly became extremely focused. A strange light flowed in his eyes, and then his 10 fingers fluttered, quickly forming seals. The speed of the seals was so fast that it left afterimages in the void. Ling Xiao saw runes condensing in Tai Xian's palm and flying toward the vortex. Buzz. The vortex passageway trembled slightly, and the light changed. Faintly, a faint 7-colored light appeared. Then, 7 strange nodes appeared around the vortex. They were connected to each other and coexisted with each other. It was very strange. Go! After seeing the 7 nodes, Tai Xian suddenly shouted. The 5 inner cores and the yin-yang origin bead turned into a stream of light and rushed into the nodes. The 5 inner elixirs each occupied a node. The yin-yang origin bead split into 2 yin and yang qi, like 2 pearls fixed on the 2 nodes. Finally, the yin-yang origin bead flew back and landed in Tai Xian's palm. Rumble. After the 7 nodes were occupied, the vortex trembled violently. Divine light roared and the void shook. Gradually, an extremely stable passage appeared and an ancient and strange aura came from it. The passage to the relic was completely opened. The people from the old god sect entered the vortex by accident. After they entered, they seemed to have destroyed 7 array eyes. That's why they stopped us. Now that I've fixed the 7 array eyes, I can repair the array and open the passage. Tai Xian explained to Ling Xiao proudly. What he was most proud of was not his cultivation but his attainments in array formation. In the entire Tai Yi celestial sect, even the old monsters did not dare to say that they were better than him in array formation. In Tai Xian's eyes, the array formation in front of him was just a piece of cake. He had helped Tai Xian open many powerful array relics, and there was no lack of Supreme Emperor rays in those relics. Give me the yin-yang origin bead, Ling Xiao said as he looked at Tai Xian. Tai Xian's face stiffened and his pride was gone. He felt his heart bleeding as he handed the yin-yang origin bead to Ling Xiao dejectedly. Holding the yin-yang origin bead in his hand, Ling Xiao immediately felt a surge of yin and yang qi surging into his body. It flowed through his body, cold and refreshing, making his physical body seem to have improved slightly. It was indeed a supreme treasure. Ling Xiao was satisfied. Lord Lei Ling, the yin-yang origin bead, Tai Xian said hesitantly. It's mine, Ling Xiao said as he stared at Tai Xian with the yin-yang origin bead in his hand. Tai Xian's face darkened, but he still said flatteringly, Lord Lei Ling, although the yin-yang origin bead is a supreme treasure, I've used up a lot of the yin and yang qi in it. If you can refine it with the innate yin and yang qi, it will definitely become a top supreme emperor weapon in the future. Innate yin and yang qi? Where is it? Ling Xiao was taken aback. I opened an ancient relic yesterday. It's the place where the yin-yang immortal emperor passed away. The yin-yang immortal emperor merged with the origin of heaven and earth and created a pool of innate yin and yang qi. It's perfect for refining the yin-yang origin bead, Tai Xian said with a cough. If that's the case, why don't you use it to refine it? Ling Xiao asked with a half-smile. I wanted to use it to refine the yin-yang origin bead, but my elder brother needed to cultivate in seclusion, so he kept it. He said he left the immortal demon cave and brought it back to the sect so that the sect master could refine it for me. Tai Xian explained. Your elder brother? Taiyuan's saint? That means the innate yin and yang qi is in Taiyuan's hands. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You're hoping that Taiyuan can save you, Ling Xiao said with a cold smile. Chapter 30-37. Tai Xian smiled awkwardly and said, Master Lei Ling, my brother is indeed powerful, but you're not weak either. Moreover, you can use me to exchange for the innate yin and yang qi from my brother. My brother dotes on me and will definitely agree. So that's what you're thinking, Ling Xiao said with a faint smile. Master Lei Ling, what do you think of my idea? Seeing that Ling Xiao was tempted, Tai Xian was shocked and asked hurriedly. He was indeed afraid. Lei Ling was a devil who killed people at the drop of a hat. Didn't he see that the people from Heavenly Reaching Immortal sect were all killed by him? He wondered what kind of expression the Sword Heart Saint would have when he saw this scene. Tai Xian was afraid that Lei Ling would be temperamental and kill him too. Therefore, the safest way was to leave Lei Ling as soon as possible. For this reason, he even betrayed his brother and told him about the innate yin and yang qi. We'll see. Now, let's go into the relic and have a look, Ling Xiao said non-committally. Outside the relic is the yin-yang reversal 5 elements formation. Could it be a relic left behind by an expert from the immortal tribe? Ling Xiao thought to himself. With this doubt, he took Tai Xian and plunged into the relic's passageway. Boom! When Ling Xiao entered the relic, he immediately felt the surroundings shaking. Powerful and overbearing attacks swept across the sky. Ling Xiao's blood and qi surged and divine light gushed out. He then punched out. The attacks that filled the sky were all swept away and destroyed. Stop, it's not the immortal tribe, it's the Son of God, someone exclaimed. His voice was filled with incomparable excitement. The light in front of Ling Xiao changed, and he could see the surroundings clearly. More than 30 disciples of the old god cult were attacking. They must have thought that the immortal tribe had invaded, so they attacked with all their might when they saw a figure in the passageway. Ling Xiao felt that they were disciples of the old god cult, so he released the aura of the immortal tribe. He did not use his full strength and only destroyed their attacks. The 30 disciples of the ancient god cult were all injured, but their eyes were filled with surprise. Their gazes towards Ling Xiao were filled with fanatical worship. Previously, they had almost lost all hope and were planning to fight to the death. Even if they died, they would kill a few more immortals. But who would have thought that the surprise would come so quickly? It was actually the arrival of the Son of God. Ling Zhao's arrival made them feel the joy and excitement of escaping death. Greetings, God's child. More than 30 disciples of the ancient god cult knelt down in front of Ling Zhao and shouted excitedly. Everyone please rise. I've killed all the people from the Tai Yi celestial sect and the heaven-connecting celestial sect. Ling Zhao smiled faintly and raised his hands. Instantly, a gush of abundant divine power gushed out and helped all the disciples of the ancient god cult up. Have they all been killed? The mighty Son of God. Although the disciples of the old god cult had expected this, they still couldn't help but shout excitedly. Although Tai Xian was standing beside Ling Zhao, he looked like a captive of the Son of God. Although they were puzzled as to why the Son of God didn't kill Tai Xian, they didn't say anything. Did you find anything in the ruins? Ling Zhao asked curiously. Speaking of which, it wasn't easy. Although the ancient god cult had brought 90 people this time, in order to reduce the casualties, none of them were immortal monarchs except for Ling Zhao. However, Ling Zhao found out that one of the disciples had broken through to the immortal monarch realm. Reporting to the Son of God, we found an ancestral god spring in the ruins. With the help of the ancestral god spring, my cultivation base directly broke through to the Imperial Emperor realm. The leader of the group was a young man. Although his appearance was ordinary, his face was resolute and he was broad and burly. He touched his head and said to Ling Zhao in surprise. His name was Tingshan. He had been in the immortal monarch realm for thousands of years. He was also a genius of the ancient god cult, but he had fallen into obscurity later on. Who would have thought that after he entered the immortal demon cave, he would directly break through to the immortal lord realm and become the leader of the remaining disciples of the old god cult? Ancestral god spring? Bring me to have a look. Ling Zhao's eyes lit up. The 12 ancestors of the god clan were called the 12 ancestral gods. In fact, the ancestral god realm represented a realm recognized by the god clan, the Great Emperor realm. The god clan called those who broke through to the Great Emperor realm as ancestral gods. It was the meaning of the ancestors of the god clan. Devour. The so-called ancestral god spring was the essence spring left behind by the great emperors of the god clan. It wasn't necessarily left behind by the 12 ancestral gods. The ancestral god spring contained the purest origin energy. It was an unimaginable fortune for the immortal monarchs. Ling Zhao was still guessing that this was a ruin left behind by an immortal monarch. He didn't expect to find an ancestral god spring here. Son of God, this way please. Teng Shan said respectfully. Under Teng Shan's lead, Ling Zhao walked into the depths of the ruins. Tai Xian's face revealed a hint of curiosity. The ancestral god spring was an extremely rare treasure. For the divine race, it was a treasure that was as precious as their lifeblood. In the past Immortal Demon Conference, there were experts of the god clan who encountered the ancestral god spring and their cultivation base increased greatly. There's an ancestral god spring in this ruin. These disciples of the old god cult are really lucky. Tai Xian thought to himself. This ruin wasn't big. It was only about 10,000 miles in radius. The surrounding void was shattered and there were cracks. This was a space that was about to be destroyed. If they hadn't discovered this ruin, they were afraid that this space would have been completely destroyed before the next Immortal Demon Great Conference. There were a few barren mountains in the surroundings. Other than that, there was an endless wasteland. There were no plants, no signs of life, and it was extremely dilapidated. However, in the center of the ruin, there was an ancestral god spring. The stone pool was about 100 feet in radius. It looked extremely simple and unadorned. There was mottled aura above it. Inside the stone pool, a golden divine spring was flowing. It looked sparkling and translucent, just like nectar from the finest nectar. Ling Zhao could feel that the golden spring contained an incomparably vast amount of energy. This was the ancestral god spring left behind by the great emperors. The most fundamental energy could stimulate the bloodline of the god clan and increase the cultivation base of the god clan experts. There was even a chance that one could obtain the inheritance of the great emperors. It's really the ancestral god spring. Ling Zhao nodded and said, Son of God, Please forgive me. In order to heal my injuries, Teng Shan took part of the ancestral god spring and shared it with my junior brothers and sisters. It's Teng Shan's fault for taking the ancestral god spring. Please punish me, son of God. Teng Shan suddenly knelt on one knee and said to Ling Xiao in a deep voice. Chapter 30-38. Ling Xiao was annoyed and amused at the same time. Teng Shan, what's wrong with you? You were the ones who found the ancestral god spring. Even if you refined it, it's only right. If you don't refine it, are you waiting for the immortal clan to come in and take advantage of them? Then, Ling Xiao glared at Tai Xian, whose eyes were shining. Ahem. Tai Xian was a little embarrassed. He coughed softly and kept silent. Ling Xiao was right. If the Tai Immortal Sect and the Heavenly Connecting Immortal Sect came in, Teng Shan and the others would not be able to resist at all. Instead, they would be trapped and killed. At that time, the ancestral god spring would belong to Tai Xian. Speaking of which, the ancestral god spring was his treasure? At the thought of this, Tai Xian suddenly felt a heartache. He had lost another treasure. Lei Ling was a jinx. God's son, we don't deserve to use the ancestral god spring. Only you deserve to use it. You are the hope of the god clan. Teng Shan looked at Ling Xiao fervently. If the immortal clan comes in, we will destroy the ancestral god spring before they come in. Teng Shan's voice was sonorous and his eyes were filled with determination. The disciples of the old god cult were all the same. Their eyes were filled with determination and there was no fear in them. They were not the most outstanding disciples of the old god cult and were sent into the immortal demon cave as cannon fodder. However, their admiration for the god's son came from the bottom of their hearts. They believed that the god's son was the savior of the god clan. Therefore, when they saw the ancestral god spring, the first thing they thought of was Ling Xiao. If it were not for their high cultivation, they would not even enjoy a little bit of the ancestral god spring. Ling Xiao's heart trembled when he saw the looks of the disciples of the old god cult. It was as if something in his heart had been touched. To be honest, when Ling Xiao entered the immortal demon cave, he had thought of helping the 6 major divine sects to kill the immortal clan. However, he did not think much of the disciples of the 6 major divine sects. Even if some of them died, he would not care much. The only people he cared about were Wu Hen, Zhan Qin, and the other 10 people who had entered the hall with him. This was because they had all become Ling Xiao's most loyal followers. But now, looking at these people in front of him, he realized that their cultivation base wasn't high, and their aptitude couldn't compare to those heaven-defying monsters. However, their sincerity and loyalty to Ling Xiao were even more precious than the ancestral god spring. Who says you're not worthy? As far as I'm concerned, no one is more qualified than all of you to enjoy the ancestral god spring. All of you are the hope and seeds of the god race. If all of you die, what's the use of leaving me alive? Ling Xiao's voice was a little low, but it gradually became louder and louder. It was as if a flame was about to burst out from the depths of his heart. Ling Xiao's eyes were extremely calm as he stared deeply at the 36 disciples of the ancient god cult. It was as though he wanted to imprint all of them in his heart. Lord Son of God. Teng Shan's eyes brimmed with tears as he looked at Ling Xiao emotionally. However, Ling Xiao stopped him. Now, I order everyone to enter the ancestral god spring. Ling Xiao suddenly roared, his voice like thunder. Yes. Teng Shan's body trembled as he roared. The 36 disciples of the ancient god cult roared at the same time. Tears welled up in their eyes as their bodies trembled. They were so emotional that they couldn't control themselves. How could they not desire the ancestral god spring? This was a supreme treasure left behind by the great emperor of the god race. Legend had it that it could transform one's body, increase one's cultivation base, purify one's bloodline, and obtain the inheritance. There were countless mysterious legends about it. The 6 major god religions had already run out of ancestral god springs. Even if there were some left, it was extremely rare and was reserved for the saints and saintesses. They devoured. When they entered the immortal demon cave, they already knew that they were cannon fodder. However, They didn't feel any anger or dissatisfaction because they saw a new hope for the God race. Lord Son of God, Lei Ling. Even if they encountered the ancestral God Spring, the first thing they thought of was to leave it for Lord Son of God. As long as Lord Son of God refined the ancestral God Spring, his cultivation base would increase by leaps and bounds, and he would be able to defeat everyone and walk out of the immortal demon cave unscathed. But now, Lord Son of God had given up the ancestral God Spring and given it to them. In the past, they had only admired and respected Lei Ling. Now, their loyalty to Lei Ling had reached an unsurpassable level. Their hearts trembled as the thought of dying for someone who understood them welled up in their hearts. You are not cannon fodder. You are also the hope of the God race. Therefore, I will help you break the bloodline shackles and become a true God race. From today onwards, you will no longer be descendants of the God race. You will have a glorious and glorious name, God race. Ling Zhao's voice rang clearly in the ears of every old God religion disciple. God race? The eyes of the 36 disciples of the old God sect shone with dazzling light. How foreign, familiar, ancient, and glorious was this name. Although the 6 major God religions called themselves the God race, in the eyes of the immortals, they were just a group of descendants with a portion of the God race's bloodline. They couldn't be considered a true God race. The true God race might have disappeared long ago. But now, Ling Xiao was telling them that Ling Xiao would help them break the bloodline shackles and become a true God race? Their hearts were filled with disbelief, but at the same time, they were filled with endless confidence. Break the bloodline shackles? Can he really do it? Tai Xian looked at Ling Xiao in shock. His expression was complicated. If this news were to spread, it would probably cause an earthquake. The entire immortal realm would tremble. And if he heard this big secret, would he be silenced by Ling Xiao? Bang! Tai Xian decisively slapped himself on the forehead, sealing all his cultivation in an instant, and then fainted. The more he knew, the faster he would die. He had better be self-conscious and not know too many secrets. Otherwise, Ling Xiao would want to kill him. This fiend was really capable of doing anything. Ling Xiao was slightly surprised to see that Tai Xian had sealed his cultivation and knocked himself out. This kid had a bright future. Ling Xiao couldn't bear to kill him since he was so self-aware. Forget it, I'll let him live for now. Ling Xiao thought to himself. Rumble. Radiant light shone between Ling Xiao's eyebrows. In an instant, an ancient seal appeared in the sky, exuding an ancient and majestic aura. Vast God race luck gushed out from it as if it was the supreme authority of the God race, controlling the life and death of billions of God race members. The God race seal had appeared. Chapter 3039. The Divine Clan Seal was the ultimate authority of the Divines. In ancient times, the Divine Clan Seal and the Cauldron of Creation were known as the 2 greatest treasures of the Divines. However, after the war between the Divines and the Immortals, not only did the Cauldron of Creation shatter into countless pieces, but the Divine Clan Seal was also lost. In the end, Ling Xiao obtained the Divine Clan Seal's acknowledgement in the Chaos Ancient Land and then came to the Divines. Perhaps this was also his fate with the God race that had been predestined. Now, Ling Xiao was prepared to use the Divine Clan Seal to break the bloodline shackles of the 36 old God cult disciples, allowing them to be reborn and undergo the ultimate transformation. Although the ancestral God Spring was incomparably precious and contained vast amounts of origin energy that could raise the cultivation of divines, origin energy wasn't what Ling Xiao lacked the most at the moment. Ling Xiao was currently on the path of the fusion of 10,000 great Daos. He needed to obtain the fruits of 3,000 great Daos, gather them into one, and forge his own path. To Ling Xiao, the ancestral God Spring was only able to raise his life origin and wasn't of much help to him. However, it was different for the 36 old God cult disciples. The boundless ancestral God Spring was enough for Ling Xiao to use the Divine Clan Seal to break the bloodline shackles for all of them and become true divines. This was their greatest fortune. As soon as the Divine Clan Seal appeared, the 36 divines, led by Teng Shan, All felt their blood boiling and their hearts throbbing. The divine clan's seal felt familiar, majestic, and mysterious to them. Fall! Ling Xiao roared, and the divine clan's seal descended with a rumble like a mountain. The divine clan's seal floated above the heads of the 36 divines. The fortune of the divines rose and connected with all of them as one. Mysterious lines seemed to appear above their heads. These were the lines of fate and karma. Those mysterious lines fused with the God race mark, causing the God race mark to shine brightly. Above the God clan seal, chaotic mist rose, as if a mysterious scene of the creation of heaven and earth had appeared. 12 ancient worlds rose, and in each world, there was an invincible phantom of an ancestral god. Rumble! Devour! The ancestral god Spring began to boil. The golden ancestral god Spring trembled violently and shone with dazzling light. Then, as if it had gained intelligence, it began to burrow into the bodies of the 36 people. With Tengshan taking the lead, the auras of the 36 of them instantly began to surge. The ancestral divine Spring poured into their bodies and began to refine their bodies, condense their meridians, and raise their aptitude. In the end, the ancestral divine Spring converged into the divine bones on their chests like rivers flowing into a river. Boom, 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 their divine bones trembled violently. After absorbing the water from the divine Spring, it was as if the earth that had been parched for a long time had encountered rain. Then they began to emit endless light. In an instant, it was as if 36 suns had broken through the darkness and soared into the sky. Their auras grew stronger and stronger, like volcanoes that were about to erupt, erupting with an extremely terrifying bloodline fluctuation. As if some kind of power in the unseen world had been triggered, tens of thousands of rays of dazzling divine light shone from their bodies. However, a mysterious black chain emerged. The black chains had shackled their bloodlines and divine bones, and they even extended to their birth horoscopes. With the existence of the black chain, their path to attaining the great emperor realm was sealed. Therefore, the divine clan had been incomparably weak for countless epochs. Those who could attain the great emperor realm could be counted on one hand. Those who had attained the great emperor realm by luck had all unintentionally broken through the bloodline shackles and attained the great emperor realm through great opportunities and great fortune. However, their fates were not good. They were targeted by the immortal clan. Even the heaven-span great emperor, who was peerless in his generation and possessed the invincible momentum to slay great emperors, had condensed the 4 heaven-span immortal swords and given the divine clan hope of rising again. But in the end, the heaven-span great emperor still failed and fell. The immortal clan's power was definitely not as simple as it appeared on the surface. Break! Ling Xiao roared from the void. Boundless light bloomed from his body as he activated the divine clan seal with all his might. The power of the divine clan seal and the ancestral god Spring merged as one. Borrowing the divine clan's powerful fortune, 36 pillars of fortune were instantly formed and poured into the bodies of Tengshan and the others. Rumble! Their auras erupted like a volcano with a loud bang. The black chains around their bloodlines trembled violently under the impact of the pillar of fortune. They buzzed, and in the end, cracks appeared on them before they directly exploded. Boundless divine light gushed out from the bodies of the 36 divine clan experts. The divine bones in front of their chests were also extremely resplendent. It was as if the strength that had been accumulated for countless years had suddenly exploded, making each and every one of them feel carefree and unrestrained. They roared excitedly, their voices like thunder and shaking the heavens. The world that was about to be destroyed was trembling. Then Ling Xiao saw it. The majestic energy in the ancestral god Spring was surging wildly into their bodies like 100 rivers returning to the current. They were like whales swallowing the sea, constantly devouring large amounts of origin energy. The immortal kings almost instantly broke through to the immortal supremacy realm and continued to soar. The speed of this cultivation breakthrough was too fast. However, the biggest change was not their cultivation, but their essence, energy, and spirit. At this moment, The 36 of them were like 36 peerless divine swords that had been unsheathed, blooming with dazzling light. His body was tall and straight like a dragon. The aura in his body was as vast as the sea. The murderous aura around him was so condensed that it was almost tangible. His eyes were sharp, bright, and resplendent. His entire person was swept away, as if he had become a peerless genius. From today onwards, their talent is probably no less than Zhan Qin and Wu Han's. Ling Xiao exclaimed in his heart. His eyes were filled with incomparable relief. This was the divine clan that he had personally created. They were the strongest warriors of the divine clan. These people were originally the most ordinary disciples of the ancient god cult. After all, most of their cultivation had stagnated for a long time and could not improve. This time, they were selected to be cannon fodder. However, Ling Xiao gave them a chance to be reborn, and they did not disappoint Ling Xiao's expectations. After this transformation, whether it was their cultivation, spirit, or even battle prowess, all of them had undergone tremendous changes. Their loyalty to Ling Xiao had also reached the extreme. They were the 36 divine generals under Ling Xiao. Invincible divine generals. Chapter 30-40. Since you know that the heavenly sword diagram is in this stone tablet, why don't you take it? Ling Xiao asked calmly. Because I'm waiting for you. The Sword Heart Saint's gaze fell on Ling Xiao. Waiting for me? That's right. I can feel that the owner of the heavenly sword diagram is you. Only you can take it out. After all, the heavenly sword emperor is from the deity race. The Sword Heart Saint said slowly. So you intend to snatch the heavenly sword diagram from me? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed as he said with a faint smile. You can understand it that way. The battle between us should have started long ago. In the past, you weren't my match, but now, you have the qualifications to do so. The Sword Heart Saint looked at Ling Xiao and did not hide the strong battle intent in his eyes as he said, Therefore, after comprehending for 3 days and 3 nights under the heaven-reaching stone tablet, I only managed to comprehend the sword intent of the heaven-reaching Great Emperor. If I lose, all the fragments will belong to you. If I win, not only will the immortal culling sword be mine, but the heavenly sword diagram will also be mine. The Sword Heart Saint's tone was very calm as if he was stating a fact. There was no anger or agitation in his voice. He was like a sword that was eternal and unperturbed. You are right. The battle between us should have started long ago. The winner will have everything, and the loser will die. Ling Xiao's eyes also revealed a trace of radiance. He could feel the terrifying sword intent around the Sword Heart Saint rising as if he was accumulating power, ready to explode with a shocking blow at any time. The Sword Heart Saint placed the Zhu immortal sword on his knees. He gently stroked the sword as if he was nurturing it. Although the Sword Heart Saint looked calm on the surface, the strong battle intent was almost gushing out. Are you treating me as a sword test? Ling Xiao sneered in his heart. He could vaguely see through the Sword Heart Saint's thoughts. The Sword Heart Saint's cultivation had reached the peak of the 3rd heaven of the immortal Lord Realm. It seemed that he could enter the 4th heaven at any time. He was using Ling Xiao as a testing ground for his sword. He wanted to use Ling Xiao to hone his supreme sword Dao. Ling Xiao had previously felt that the Sword Heart Saint's sword might be a killing sword. After all, he had cultivated the Great Immortal Slaying Technique and the Great Immortal Trapping Technique of the Grandmaster the Arch. But now, the Sword Heart Saint's sword had a trace of vitality. Although it was weak, it was like the extreme yang giving birth to yin. It contained a power that shook the heavens. Lei Ling, I hope you won't disappoint me. The Sword Heart Saint gently stroked the immortal extermination sword and slowly stood up. Rumble. A majestic sword intent rose from his body, like a smoke signal soaring into the sky, causing him to instantly become incomparably fierce, revealing his sharpness. As you wish, Ling Xiao said with a faint smile. The immortal slaughtering sword in his hand vibrated slightly. As he circulated the Great Immortal Slaughtering Technique, the immortal slaughtering sword shone brightly, causing Ling Xiao's body to release a supreme killing sword intent. The Sword Heart Saint and Ling Zhao's sword intent collided. It was like a battle of fate, causing the immortal slaying sword and the immortal slaughtering sword to release a resonant dragon roar at the same time. As if it had sensed the aura of Ling Zhao and the Sword Heart Saint, the huge sky-reaching steel also released a terrifying wave of energy. Kacha! A bolt of lightning bloomed, as if it had split the heavens and earth. The sky-reaching steel shook violently, and then released a boundless light. It turned into an ancient and huge void battleground in front of Ling Zhao and the Sword Heart Saint. It was as if billions of sword chi had gathered. The void battleground was fierce and domineering, enveloping Ling Zhao and the Sword Heart Saint. Above the void battleground, an ancient sword diagram spread out in a vast expanse of chaotic mist. Within the sword diagram, there were sword chi and sword intent surging. It turned into the earth, mountains, and rivers and gathered all the stars. It was like a picture of mountains and rivers, majestic and magnificent. However, the shocking sword intent contained within it caused everyone's body to tremble, and they felt their hearts palpitate endlessly. The winner will receive my inheritance. An ancient and mysterious voice sounded, as if it had passed through the long river of time and reverberated above the void battleground. This was actually a battleground prepared for Ling Zhao and the Sword Heart Saint. It seems like the sky-reaching emperor had already expected this battle. The Sword Heart Saint said lightly, "Just nice. You and I will have a fair battle. The winner will naturally receive the sky-reaching sword diagram." Ling Zhao smiled faintly. They all recognized that the sword diagram floating in the void battleground was the sky-reaching sword diagram. The sky-reaching emperor's original intention was for them to step onto the void battleground and decide the winner and loser. Just as Ling Zhao and the Sword Heart Saint stepped onto the void battleground, an image of the void battleground appeared above the immortal demon cave. "Look, is that Lei Ling and the Sword Heart Saint? Sky-reaching sword diagram? That's the supreme inheritance of the sky-reaching emperor. Is the inheritor going to be decided between the two of them? This is going to be an earth-shattering battle. I wonder who will win." In the immortal demon cave, regardless of whether it was the deity tribe or the immortal tribe, everyone was shocked. They all looked at the void battleground, their eyes filled with shock as they discussed. Although they did not know where Ling Zhao and the Sword Heart Saint were, the scene in front of them had completely shocked them. This was the mighty power of the sky-reaching emperor. A huge projection had appeared, not only in the sky above the immortal demon cave, but even in the void outside the immortal demon cave. The projection of the void battleground had appeared. Everyone saw the figures of Ling Zhao and the Sword Heart Saint. Outside the immortal demon cave, the supreme elders of the 9 major immortal sects and the 6 major divine sects were engulfed. Even His Highness, the 9th Prince, had his eyes on the heaven-reaching battlefield. Especially the sect leader of the sky-reaching immortal sect, Ning Wuji, and Gu Tongtian. Their gazes met in the void battleground, and sparks seemed to fly. "Gu Tongtian, I'm afraid that your deity's son will fall today. It's time for the sky-reaching sword diagram to return to the sky-reaching immortal sect." Ning Wuji said indifferently. Gu Tongtian said indifferently, "Isn't it too early to say that? The sky-reaching emperor is a member of the deity tribe. The sky-reaching sword diagram will naturally fall into the hands of the deity tribe. If the Sword Heart Saint dies, the sky-reaching immortal sect will suffer a great loss. The Sword Heart won't die. He's a once-in-a-billion sword Dao genius. He was born with the sword bone, and it's hard to find someone like him. He's dedicated his entire life to the sword. Not to mention Lei Ling, even Taiyuan is no match for him." Ning Wuji said with a smile. He was full of confidence in the Sword Heart. "Is that so? Then let's wait and see. Since the sky-reaching emperor arranged this projection, I'm sure he has his own reasons." Gu Tongtian said indifferently. As for the others, they all had strange looks on their faces. They didn't expect such a scene to happen in this immortal demon gathering. However, they didn't dare to say who would win this battle. After all, although Ling Zhao's cultivation wasn't as high as the Sword Heart Saint's, he was the deity's son. It was inevitable that he would receive preferential treatment from the sky-reaching emperor. After all, the void battleground and the projection were all created by the sky-reaching emperor. Is the sky-reaching sword diagram finally going to appear? The ninth prince's gaze fell on the sky-reaching sword diagram. The light changed and became slightly brighter. Your Highness, they don't understand that you are the destined owner of the sky-reaching sword diagram. Beside the immortal emperor's chariot, the white-haired elder in a Taoist robe smiled and said with certainty, "Destiny is changeable. It might not be on me. Let's wait and see who wins this battle." The ninth prince said noncommittally. Chapter 3041. Since you know that the heavenly sword diagram is in this stone tablet, why don't you take it? Ling Xiao asked calmly. Because I'm waiting for you. The sword heart saint's gaze fell on Ling Xiao. Waiting for me? That's right. I can feel that the owner of the heavenly sword diagram is you. Only you can take it out. After all, the heavenly sword emperor is from the deity race. The sword heart saint said slowly. So you intend to snatch the heavenly sword diagram from me? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed as he said with a faint smile. You can understand it that way. The battle between us should have started long ago. In the past, you weren't my match, but now, you have the qualifications to do so. The sword heart saint looked at Ling Xiao and did not hide the strong battle intent in his eyes as he said, therefore, after comprehending for 3 days and 3 nights under the heaven-reaching stone tablet, I only managed to comprehend the sword intent of the heaven-reaching great emperor. If I lose, all the fragments will belong to you. If I win, not only will the immortal culling sword be mine, but the heavenly sword diagram will also be mine. The sword heart saint's tone was very calm as if he was stating a fact. There was no anger or agitation in his voice. He was like a sword that was eternal and unperturbed. You are right. The battle between us should have started long ago. The winner will have everything, and the loser will die. Ling Xiao's eyes also revealed a trace of radiance. He could feel the terrifying sword intent around the sword heart saint rising as if he was accumulating power, ready to explode with a shocking blow at any time. The sword heart saint placed the Zhu immortal sword on his knees. He gently stroked the sword as if he was nurturing it. Although the sword heart saint looked calm on the surface, the strong battle intent was almost gushing out. Are you treating me as a sword test? Ling Xiao sneered in his heart. He could vaguely see through the sword heart saint's thoughts. The sword heart saint's cultivation had reached the peak of the 3rd heaven of the immortal Lord realm. It seemed that he could enter the 4th heaven at any time. He was using Ling Xiao as a testing ground for his sword. He wanted to use Ling Xiao to hone his supreme sword Dao. Ling Xiao had previously felt that the sword heart saint's sword might be a killing sword. After all, he had cultivated the great immortal slaying technique and the great immortal trapping technique of the Grandmaster the Arch. But now, the sword heart saint's sword had a trace of vitality. Although it was weak, it was like the extreme yang giving birth to yin. It contained a power that shook the heavens. Lei Ling, I hope you won't disappoint me. The sword heart saint gently stroked the immortal extermination sword and slowly stood up. Rumble. A majestic sword intent rose from his body, like a smoke signal soaring into the sky, causing him to instantly become incomparably fierce, revealing his sharpness. As you wish. Ling Xiao smiled faintly as the immortal slaughtering sword in his hand vibrated slightly. As he circulated the great immortal slaughtering technique, the immortal slaughtering sword shone brightly, causing Ling Xiao's body to release a supreme killing sword intent. The sword heart saint and Ling Xiao's sword intent collided. It was like a battle of fate, causing the immortal slaying sword and the immortal slaughtering sword to release a resonant dragon roar at the same time. As if it had sensed the aura of Ling Xiao and the sword heart saint, the huge sky-reaching steel also released a terrifying wave of energy. Kacha! A bolt of lightning bloomed, as if it had split the heavens and earth. The sky-reaching steel shook violently, and then released a boundless light. It turned into an ancient and huge void battleground in front of Ling Xiao and the sword heart saint. It was as if billions of sword chi had gathered. The void battleground was fierce and domineering, enveloping Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint. Above the void battleground, an ancient sword diagram spread out in a vast expanse of chaotic mist. Within the sword diagram, there were sword chi and sword intent surging. It turned into the earth, mountains, and rivers and gathered all the stars. It was like a picture of mountains and rivers, majestic and magnificent. However, the shocking sword intent contained within it caused everyone's body to tremble, and they felt their hearts palpitate endlessly. The winner will receive my inheritance. An ancient and mysterious voice sounded, as if it had passed through the long river of time and reverberated above the void battleground. This was actually a battleground prepared for Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint. It seems like the sky-reaching emperor had already expected this battle. The Sword Heart Saint said lightly, "Just nice. You and I will have a fair battle. The winner will naturally receive the sky-reaching sword diagram." Ling Xiao smiled faintly. They all recognized that the sword diagram floating in the void battleground was the sky-reaching sword diagram. The sky-reaching emperor's original intention was for them to step onto the void battleground and decide the winner and loser. Just as Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint stepped onto the void battleground, an image of the void battleground appeared above the immortal demon cave. "Look, is that Lei Ling and the Sword Heart Saint? Sky-reaching sword diagram? That's the supreme inheritance of the sky-reaching emperor. Is the inheritor going to be decided between the two of them? This is going to be an earth-shattering battle. I wonder who will win." In the immortal demon cave, regardless of whether it was the deity tribe or the immortal tribe, everyone was shocked. They all looked at the void battleground, their eyes filled with shock as they discussed. Although they did not know where Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint were, the scene in front of them had completely shocked them. This was the power of the sky-reaching emperor. A huge projection had actually appeared, not only in the sky above the immortal demon cave, but even in the void outside the immortal demon cave. The projection of the void battleground had appeared. Everyone saw the figures of Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint. Outside the immortal demon cave, the supreme elders of the 9 major immortal sects and the 6 major immortal sects, and even the 9th prince, were all looking at the void battleground. Especially the sect leader of the sky-reaching immortal sect, Ning Wuji, and Gu Tongtian. When their gazes met in the void battleground, it was as if sparks were flying. "Gu Tonggan, I'm afraid that your god's son will fall today. It's time for the sky-reaching sword diagram to return to the sky-reaching immortal sect." Ning Wuji said lightly. Gu Tongtian said indifferently, "Isn't it too early to say that? The sky-reaching emperor is a member of the deity tribe. The sky-reaching sword diagram will naturally fall into the hands of the deity tribe. If the Sword Heart Saint dies, the sky-reaching immortal sect will suffer a great loss. The Sword Heart won't die. He's a once-in-a-billion sword Dao genius. He was born with the sword bone. It's hard to find someone like him since ancient times. Not to mention Lei Ling, even Taiyuan is no match for him," Ning Wuji said with a faint smile. He was full of confidence in the Sword Heart. "Is that so? Then let's wait and see. Since the sky-reaching emperor arranged the projection of this battle, I'm sure he has his reasons," Gu Tongtian said indifferently. As for the others, they all had strange looks on their faces. They had not expected such a scene to occur in this immortal demon gathering. However, they did not dare to say who would win or lose this battle. After all, although Ling Zhao's cultivation was not as high as the Sword Heart Saint, he had the deity tribe's fate chi. As the god's son, it was inevitable that he would receive preferential treatment from the sky-reaching emperor. After all, the void battleground and the projection in front of them were all created by the sky-reaching emperor. Is the sky-reaching sword diagram finally going to appear? The 9th prince's gaze fell on the sky-reaching sword diagram. The light changed and became slightly brighter. "Your Highness, they don't understand that you are the destined owner of the sky-reaching sword diagram." Beside the immortal emperor's chariot, the white-haired elder in a Taoist robe smiled lightly and said with absolute certainty, "Destiny is changeable. It may not be with me. Let's wait and see the outcome of this battle." The ninth prince said non-committally. Chapter 3042. Ling Xiao did not know that the battle between him and the Sword Heart Saint had already been projected to countless void worlds by the void battleground. He only had eyes for the Sword Heart Saint. The Sword Heart Saint's sword, intense sword. It was as though he had transformed into an invincible sword that had swept through all the worlds. As the saying went, a swordsman was sharp. In the surrounding void, the sword radiance was blazing and surging like the sea. It enveloped Ling Xiao and formed a powerful sword realm. Although Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint had not exchanged blows, their auras had already begun to clash. Ling Xiao stood in the void battleground, his blood essence surging like the sea. The primordial immortal body emitted purple light and purple chi, exuding an immortal and eternal aura. The chaotic divine bone in front of his chest was intertwined with the chaotic chi, providing him with supreme power. His eyes were bright and sharp, and a vast fist intent burst out from his body. It was fierce, majestic, domineering and majestic. He had not thrown out a punch, but it seemed as though the sky was filled with fist shadows. Rumble! The two powerful auras collided, intertwining with a powerful emperor's aura. It formed a powerful storm between Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint, sweeping out in all directions and causing the void battleground to roar. Both Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint could feel the strength of each other, so the battle intent in their eyes was incomparably strong. Although the Sword Heart Saint's physical body was not as strong as Ling Xiao's, he was a sword cultivator and could not compete with Ling Xiao's physical strength. A sword cultivator's most powerful weapon was the sword in his hand. Moreover, the Sword Heart Saint was holding the Zhu Immortal Sword. The Zhu Immortal Sword was a supreme emperor weapon and had resonated with the Sword Heart. It could erupt with the strongest power in his hand. Although Ling Xiao had the immortal culling sword and cultivated the great culling immortal art, he was definitely not as good as the Sword Heart Saint in terms of sword Dao. Ling Xiao was best at suppressing others with his aura and using his strength to break through all techniques. No matter how many techniques the opponent had, he would break them with a single punch. Therefore, the battle between Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart depended on whether Ling Xiao would shatter the Sword Heart's physical body first, or the Sword Heart would kill Ling Xiao first. This was a battle that attracted the attention of the entire world. Everyone could feel the strength of Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint. Their eyes were filled with anticipation. Who would be crowned king in this battle? Boom! Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint attacked almost at the same time. Their auras rose to the extreme, and the power in their bodies was about to erupt like a volcano. Ling Xiao punched out, while Jin Xin stabbed out with his sword. This fist was the Immortal Destruction Fist. As he punched out, the energy around Ling Xiao surged. The origin energy seemed to have evolved into layers of ancient worlds, which were destroyed by this punch. As for Jin Xin's sword, it was resplendent, bright, and as fast as lightning. It was as if nothing could stop this sword. No one could describe the style of that sword. No one could describe how fast that sword was. Time, space, heaven and earth, all things. Anything that stood in the way of this sword would be pierced through by this sword. Boom! A violent aura gushed out, and the void battlefield exploded violently. Ling Xiao's vast and majestic fist intent was actually pierced through by the Sword Heart Saint's sword. The sharp sword light pierced through the air and pierced through Ling Xiao's fist. It directly pierced through his flesh and came out from the cracks of his bones. Clang! On Ling Xiao's arm, there was a crystal-clear purple bone, which emitted an immortal luster. When it collided with the sword of execution, there was a sound of metal clashing. Ling Xiao's bones were so strong that even the sword of execution could not cut through them. However, the terrifying sword qi of execution surged over and instantly flowed along Ling Xiao's arm and rushed into his body, wanting to destroy all his vitality. Kill! Ling Xiao's eyes were surging with fighting spirit. He suddenly roared, and it was like a thunderclap that shook the void. It was as if he did not feel the slightest pain. Fist will gushed out and pressed forward. The punch that had been pierced by Jin Xin still blasted out across the sky, even causing the flesh and blood on his entire arm to explode into a bloody mist. Boom! Ling Zhao's remaining purple bone was filled with a tragic aura, and it suddenly collided with the Sword Heart Saint's arm that was holding the sword. The Sword Heart Saint's body shook, and a crisp sound came from his arm. It was instantly fractured, and his entire body was struck by an unparalleled divine force, and he flew backwards. The sword of execution buzzed and trembled. It was caught between Ling Zhao's bones, and there was no way for it to escape. Boom! Ling Zhao strode forward, and the surrounding aura was majestic. He stared at the Sword Heart Saint, and he did not care about the surging sword chi in his body. He punched out with both his fists. The Sword Heart Saint snorted. Although his face was slightly pale, his eyes became brighter and brighter. The battle between him and Ling Zhao was dangerous and tragic. With just one move, he had pierced through Ling Zhao's arm, and the flesh on Ling Zhao's arm was destroyed. However, Ling Zhao did not care about that sword and directly punched the Sword Heart Saint's arm, injuring it. Moreover, after Ling Zhao's fist gained momentum, it was followed by a storm-like attack. The violent fist intent swept across the void, as if it wanted to annihilate the Sword Heart Saint. He understood that Ling Zhao was playing to his strengths and avoiding his weaknesses. He wanted to fight him in close combat. Once he fell under Ling Zhao's supreme fist intent, he would be unable to use his sword. In the end, he would only be defeated by Ling Zhao. Swoosh! Immortal light rose under the Sword Heart Saint's feet, and the void was ethereal. He instantly used a teleportation technique and appeared tens of thousands of feet away, widening the gap between him and Ling Zhao. Sword, come! A cold shout exploded. The sword of execution that was originally stuck in Ling Zhao's arm suddenly shone brightly, and a surging and terrifying Emperor's aura erupted, making it impossible for Ling Zhao to block the power of the sword of execution. The sword of execution instantly soared into the sky, and its speed was extremely fast. It turned into a long rainbow and fell directly into the hands of the Sword Heart Saint. The Sword Heart Saint stood with the sword in his hand, and the sword intent around him instantly rose to the extreme. Billions of sword light gushed out, turning him into the Emperor of the Sword Way, commanding the heavens and destroying the universe. Sword Art of Execution. The Sword Heart Saint roared, and the sword of execution seemed to have become one with him, turning into a supreme sword light that pierced through the sky and slashed down towards Ling Zhao. There seemed to be some kind of power in the sword of execution that was activated, making the Sword Heart Saint's power more and more terrifying. Sword chi that could annihilate everything rose up in the surroundings, like a surging wave sweeping over. Great sword of execution? But why did he say that it's the sword art of execution? Ling Zhao's eyes flashed, and his fists had already crossed the void, colliding with the sword intent that filled the sky. In an instant, an incomparably terrifying explosion occurred. But in Ling Zhao's eyes, the sword of execution was still dazzling, piercing towards his glabella, and the sword chi was extremely sharp. Third Sect Master. Chapter 3043. Clang. Ling Zhao's body also emitted the sound of a sword chime. The celestial culling sword appeared out of thin air. The celestial culling sword flew towards the celestial culling sword. The two peerless killing swords collided at this moment. Rumble. Unparalleled divine light gushed out as hundreds of millions of sword essences were annihilated at the same time. However, Ling Zhao felt a strong surge of energy that caused him to involuntarily fly backwards. Even the celestial culling sword in Ling Zhao's hand was buzzing. The Sword Heart Saint was imposing. His figure did not change as he held the celestial culling sword in his hand. His eyes were extremely sharp. Trapping sword technique. As he shouted, the sword radiance appeared again. This time, it was faster and more powerful. The sword essence in the sky surged as if it had split into tens of thousands of sword radiances in an instant. Every ray of sword radiance was real. They were connected to each other and formed a vast sword formation that enveloped Ling Zhao. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of a sword chime resounded through the void. Ling Xiao, who was in the middle of hundreds of millions of sword qi, held the sword in one hand and unleashed an unparalleled fist essence in the other to annihilate the surging sword radiances. However, the speed of the sword radiances was too fast. They continuously slashed Ling Xiao's body and tore his flesh apart. The wounds were so deep that his bones could be seen, revealing his bones that were surrounded by purple light. In an instant, Ling Xiao looked as if he had been dismembered. Countless wounds appeared all over his body. Seeing the fierce battle between Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint, the spectators were in disbelief. The Sword Heart Saint is indeed an innate sword body. He has actually completely refined the celestial culling sword. He had just used the great celestial culling art and great celestial trapping art, right? I feel that even a 4th or 5th level immortal monarch expert would die without a doubt in the face of that surging and terrifying sword qi, right? That's right. I didn't expect their battle to be so intense. It has only been a few moves, but the Sword Heart Saint has already gained the upper hand. It seems like Lei Ling is going to lose. In the Celestial Demon Cave, many experts from the Celestial Tribe were discussing. Their eyes were filled with amazement. As for the disciples of the 6 divine sects, their eyes were filled with worry. Could the Son of God really create miracles? Jianxin? Such pure sword insight and such a sincere heart towards the sword Dao. If I encountered you in the past, it would probably be very difficult for me to defeat you. But now, you're no match for me. Taiyuan slowly opened his eyes in a relic world. Yin and Yang Qi seemed to flow in his eyes. He looked at the battlefield in midair and his eyes flickered. His eyes were filled with an incomparably strong fighting spirit. As for Ling Xiao, he didn't even spare him a glance. In his opinion, Lei Ling was no match for the Sword Heart Saint. An ant-like character was not worth his time. Rumble. The annihilation sword intent that filled the sky shattered, and Ling Xiao was also sent flying. His body was badly mangled, revealing his sparkling purple bones. He seemed to be in a sorry state. This is great. However, Ling Xiao's eyes were extremely bright. He laughed aloud as his presence surged. His boundless life essence surged, and his body recovered very quickly. Although he seemed to be in a sorry state, he had only suffered superficial injuries. Unless one could really pierce through his heart and glabella, destroying his life essence and indestructible primordial spirit, it was impossible to cause him much harm. Ling Xiao's body contained boundless life essence, and he had reached the stage where he could be reborn from a single drop of blood. Superficial injuries were nothing to him. Moreover, even if the immortal slaying sword qi surged into his body and wreaked havoc, Ling Xiao would be able to refine the immortal slaying sword qi with the help of the heaven-devouring secret skill. Ling Xiao did not use his full strength. He just wanted to see what was so special about the Sword Heart Saint. In particular, what was the power that made his heart palpitate? Lei Ling, if you don't use your full strength, you won't have a chance. The Sword Heart Saint's sword essence rose and became more and more terrifying. His eyes were like lightning as he stared at Ling Xiao coldly. Is that so? Then let me see your strongest sword principle. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Fist will rose around him, but the 15 fruits of the way between his eyebrows were as dazzling as the sun, emitting a power that made people tremble in fear. As you wish. Sword radiance rose in the Sword Heart Saint's eyes, and the immortal slaying sword in his hand trembled violently. Don't you want to know what my strongest sword principle is? Then let me tell you. The Sword Heart Saint's voice was like a sword, ringing loudly. The reason why I am more qualified than you to obtain the Heavenly Master Sword diagram is not because of my bloodline or race, but because my sword will one day surpass the Heavenly Master Emperor. The Sword Heart Saint's eyes shone with a dazzling radiance. That was a power called ambition or confidence. Killing Symbol Sword Technique. Severing Symbol Sword Technique. Following the Sword Heart Saint's 2 consecutive roars, the Extreme Emperor's aura in the immortal slaying sword in his hand completely erupted. The mighty sword qi rose, and in an instant, 2 rays of sword radiance cut across the void like 2 divine dragons, slashing towards Ling Xiao. A ray of killing sword qi. A ray of annihilation sword qi. And that ray of killing sword qi was exactly the same as Ling Zhao's great slaughter immortal art. You comprehended the great slaughter immortal art and the great ultimate immortal art by yourself? Ling Zhao's eyes shone brightly. He finally knew where the Sword Heart Saint's reliance came from. Although the Heavenly Master Immortal sect only had the great slaughter immortal art and the great immortal trapping art, the Sword Heart Saint had relied on these two immortal arts to forcefully deduce the great slaughter immortal art and the great ultimate immortal art. This kind of aptitude was too heaven-defying. No. This is my killing symbol sword technique, not the Heavenly Master Four Great Immortal Arts. The Sword Heart Saint's eyes were sharp, and the two rays of sword qi burst out, instantly engulfing Ling Zhao. Rumble. The sword qi rose, and the sword radiance seemed to have destroyed the boundless world. It contained an extreme killing aura, and it was extremely terrifying. The two rays of sword qi intertwined, and the power of the slaying immortal sword seemed to have become even more terrifying. The void battleground shook violently. If not for the fact that it was left behind by the Heavenly Master Emperor, it would have been completely destroyed. Ling Zhao's eyes shone brightly, and with a stroke of the void, the space shattered, and a vast passageway appeared, as if it led to the depths of the boundless world. Freeze! At the same time, Ling Zhao roared. Suddenly, the river of time traversed across the void, enveloping the two rays of sword qi, and then sent them into the depths of the boundless world. The sharp and terrifying sword qi was instantly buried by the power of time and the river of time. You actually cultivated the space and time great Tao? The Sword Heart Saint's eyes shone brightly, and he revealed a trace of astonishment. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 3044. The Sword Heart Saint had always thought that Ling Zhao walked the path of Tao through strength. After all, Ling Zhao's physical body was extremely strong and could even be called immortal. His bones could even compete with an extreme Tao Emperor weapon. Moreover, his fist intent was vast and he specialized in close combat. Even Ren Tianjue could not block one of his punches. However, he did not expect Ling Zhao to display the power of space and time in the blink of an eye. Space and time became extremely obedient in Ling Zhao's hands. He casually stopped the sword qi that filled the sky and buried it with the river of time. Then he completely dissolved it with the endless space. It was easy to say but extremely difficult to do. The Sword Heart Saint was sure that Ling Zhao's space and time Tao had comprehended the origin and condensed Tao fruit. In that case, Ling Zhao had condensed the time and space Tao fruit? Thinking of this, even the Sword Heart Saint could not help but feel envious. That was the time and space Tao fruit. Just the time and space Tao fruits were extremely precious. Many people could not comprehend the origin of the great Tao in their lifetime. However, the time and space Tao fruit was the combination of time and space. Both of them comprehended the origin of the great Tao, and at the final moment, they would condense into a Tao fruit and become an emperor. Even in the entire immortal world, no one had heard of anyone comprehending the time and space Tao fruit for countless years. Among the 3,000 great Taos, the time and space Tao is second only to the chaos, fate, karma, and reincarnation Tao. Am I being too high profile? Ling Zhao's eyes revealed a strange look. He suddenly felt that he should not reveal so many trump cards. The time and space Tao fruit had already shocked the Sword Heart Saint. If he revealed all 15 Tao fruits, would the Sword Heart Saint be scared to death? Moreover, Ling Zhao felt that the void battleground was a little unusual. It looked a little like a battle arena. Could there be others who could see it? Thinking of this, Ling Zhao felt that he could not reveal himself. Otherwise, if he attracted the hidden great emperors of the immortal world, he would really be finished. No matter what, there were immortal emperors in the immortal world. The immortal emperor of the eternal immortal dynasty was a genuine immortal emperor. Behind the 9 great immortal sects, there might be immortal emperors. After all, the immortal world was much stronger than the demon world. The demon world had 3 demon emperors. Space-time Tao fruit? Lei Ling, you've really hidden yourself well. Looks like I've underestimated you. However, only in this way can you be worthy of being my enemy. The Sword Heart Saint stared at Ling Xiao, his eyes filled with intense battle intent. Ling Xiao's strength not only made him feel no fear, but also made him feel extremely excited. Jianxin, since you know that I've condensed the space-time Dao fruit, you won't be a match for me if you don't take out your trump card. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He was getting more and more curious. What was the ultimate power of the Sword Heart Saint? Lei Ling, as you wish. The Sword Heart Saint's eyes flickered with a sharp light as a terrifying energy fluctuation was released from his body. Rumble. With the immortal slaying sword in his hand, he instantly soared into the sky. The vast sword intent surged, causing his entire aura to skyrocket. The Sword Heart Saint was originally at the third heaven of the immortal monarch realm. However, at this moment, he actually felt like he was about to break through the bottleneck and advance to the fourth heaven of the immortal monarch realm. Lei Ling, have a taste of my four-word sword formation. As the Sword Heart Saint roared, his entire body split into 3 clones in the void. Together with his original body, each of them occupied one side of the void. Each of them exuded a kind of peerless sword intent. Sword intent of killing. Sword intent of massacre. Sword intent of sinking. Sword intent of extinction. He had actually used his own strength to form the supreme sword formation of the Heavenly Grandmaster Great Emperor, causing a terrifying energy fluctuation to erupt. Buzz. At this moment, even the Heavenly Grandmaster sword formation in the void seemed to have reacted and began to vibrate violently. This is the Qi into Trinity technique? Ling Xiao's eyes flickered as he recognized the technique that the Sword Heart Saint had used. It was actually a supreme celestial technique from the antiquity times that was about to be lost, the Qi into Trinity technique. The Qi into Trinity technique allowed the original body to create 3 avatars. These 3 avatars possessed almost all of the original body's combat strength. In this way, it was equivalent to the 4 Sword Heart Saint besieging Ling Xiao. So this was the Sword Heart Saint's ultimate strength? The battle intent in Ling Xiao's eyes surged. That kind of powerful threat made the blood in his body start to boil. Ling Xiao's body trembled and radiated boundless light. His aura was terrifying to the extreme. When he opened his mouth, he swallowed the sun and the moon. He was like an ancient ancestor god who had created the world. Kill! Kill! Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint roared at the same time. Their gazes seemed to have materialized and caused dazzling lightning to erupt in the void. The 4 Sword Heart Saint released boundless sword essence and charged towards Ling Xiao. Kacha! Ling Xiao's fist essence surged and filled with chaotic light. His pure physical strength exploded, causing the power of his fist to reach the extreme. A huge fist print bloomed in the void. In an instant, it traversed the heavens and shattered the boundless sword Qi. Then, it pressed down on the Sword Heart Saint. Ling Xiao's body began to expand. In an instant, he turned into a towering giant. His aura was terrifying to the extreme. Immortal and eternal light surrounded his body. Although it looked like he was surrounded by the Sword Heart Saint, Ling Xiao had an invincible aura that seemed to want to kill his way up to the 9 heavens and destroy the universe. Kacha! The sword Qi swept across 1,000,000 miles. One sword radiance chilled tens of thousands of miles. 4 beams of dazzling sword light shot towards Ling Xiao from all directions. Each beam of sword light was tens of thousands of feet long. They were extremely sharp and could destroy everything. However, the Sword Heart Saint's speed was extremely fast. He struck from the sky and slashed down one sword after another. It was majestic and surging like a huge river. It was extremely terrifying. Countless figures of the Sword Heart Saint appeared in the sky. That destructive sword essence made one feel incomparable despair. Bloody light filled the air. Ling Xiao's fist print and sword Qi intertwined. Although his flesh was tough, it was still torn apart in an instant. Only his bones were left. Ling Xiao's bones were like purple glass. They were crystal clear and untainted by dust. Moreover, They contained an immortal radiance. When the sword qi collided with Ling Xiao's bones, there was a clear and melodious sound of metal clashing. Sword heart, your sword is indeed strong. However, you can't defeat me. Ling Xiao shouted indifferently. His eyes blazed as he took the initiative to charge towards the sword heart saint. Chapter 3045. Rumble. When the battle reached its climax, Ling Xiao and the sword heart saint attacked fiercely, aiming for each other's vital points. Sword intent sword, turning the surroundings into a sea of sword qi. Every single strand of sword qi was capable of killing any expert below the high immortal realm. With millions upon millions of strands of sword qi intertwined, even high immortals would die instantly. There was no doubt about it. This was a domain of absolute death, and also a sea of swords. If it was any other immortal monarch realm expert, they would have lost all hope and would be swallowed by the sword heart saint's sword intent. However, Ling Xiao's fist intent was even more majestic. Although he did not reveal his 15 Dao fruits, his fist intent came from his primordial immortal body. It merged with the power of 10,000 Daos and formed the image of chaos. Although Ling Xiao didn't use the epic fist, every punch and every move contained the supreme destructive power of the Great Destruction. The fist intent and sword qi intertwined and eventually disappeared. Ling Xiao's entire body seemed to have turned into a purple ball of light as he continuously received the attacks of the four sword heart saints. Clang, clang, clang. The flesh on Ling Xiao's fists had completely disappeared, leaving only the bones of his fists. His bones could withstand the immortal extermination sword, so the sword qi could not destroy them. Chaotic light bloomed on Ling Xiao's chest. That was the power of the chaotic divine bone. The chaotic divine bone protected his heart and life source. The space between Ling Xiao's eyebrows shone brilliantly. Not only was he protected by the wordless heavenly book, but he also had the support of the 15 Dao fruits. The heavenly devouring origin could devour everything. Even the sword qi of slaying, annihilation and extinction would be refined by the heavenly devouring origin and become a part of Ling Xiao. Therefore, in the battle between Ling Xiao and the sword heart saint, although Ling Xiao was covered in blood and was injured by the sword qi, in reality, Ling Xiao only suffered superficial wounds. Although the four sword heart saints' attacks were fierce, they could not cause any fatal injuries to Ling Xiao. Rumble. Ling Xiao and the sword heart saint were like dragons. Chaotic light surged around the void battleground and it seemed as though an ancient world had been formed. The mountains and rivers were endless, and the earth was boundless. Ling Xiao and the sword heart saint charged into the ancient world from the void battleground. Mountains and rivers were overturned and the earth sank with a wave of their hands. With a sweep of the sword qi, several tens of mountains were annihilated at the same time. As soon as the fist came out, billions of stars fell to the ground. That ancient world was quickly destroyed, but the void battleground evolved into another world. Ling Xiao and the sword heart saint seemed to be trapped in an endless world. However, their battle was not something that could be restrained by the layers of worlds. Sword qi and fist will continue to destroy one world after another. Ling Xiao and the sword heart saint were in a frenzy. The five figures were like five eternal and dazzling suns, constantly colliding with each other. The sword heart saint also seemed to have felt the strangeness of Ling Xiao's body. His heart was filled with shock, and his killing intent became even more intense. The sharp radiance of the four great sword principles intertwined and attacked Ling Xiao's chest and head continuously like a violent dragon. The battle between Ling Xiao and the sword heart saint had completely shocked the spectators. In the immortal demon cave, regardless of whether it was the immortal tribe or the deity tribe, everyone had a look of incomparable awe. Although it was just a void projection, and although they could only see the scene of the void battleground, they had no doubt that if they were in the battlefield, they would probably die in an instant. Even Taiyuan, who was in the world of ruins, had a solemn and shocked look in his eyes. Qi into Trinity technique? This is the supreme inheritance of the Tai Yi immortal sect. How could the sword heart know it? Taiyuan's face was extremely ugly, and there was a trace of anger surging on his face. He had cultivated the qi into Trinity technique before, and he had refined 3 doppelgangers, which were his trump cards. Therefore, when he saw the battle between Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint, he was confident that he could suppress the Sword Heart Saint. But now he was shocked and angry. It was an extremely complicated feeling. The 3 clones created by his 1 qi into 3 purities technique were only able to unleash 80% of his original strength. However, the Sword Heart Saint had learned the qi into Trinity technique from somewhere, and the doppelgangers had 100% of his original strength. Now, the Taiyuan Saint did not have much confidence in facing the Sword Heart. Not to mention Lei Ling, who he did not take seriously at all. Lei Ling had just broken through to the Immortal Lord Realm, and his cultivation was only at the first heaven of the Immortal Lord Realm. But now, Lei Ling had displayed an incomparably heaven-defying battle strength. Even when fighting against the 4 Sword Heart Saint, he was not at a disadvantage. Lei Ling? Sword Heart? All of you must die. The Taiyuan Saint's eyes were filled with intense killing intent, and he felt a strong threat. Outside the Immortal Demon Cave, many elders of the 9 major immortal sects and the 6 major divine sects were also shocked by the brutality of this battle. However, Tai Qingzi of the Tai Immortal sect looked at Ning Wuji and said indifferently, "Sect leader Ning, can you explain where the Sword Heart Saint's qi into Trinity technique came from?" Although his voice was indifferent, many people could hear the coldness in it. After all, the qi into Trinity technique was the supreme inheritance of the Tai Immortal sect. Only a few people in the Tai Immortal sect were qualified to cultivate it. But now, the Sword Heart Saint of the heaven-piercing immortal sect had cultivated the qi into Trinity technique. This was a slap to the Tai Immortal sect's face. Brother Tai Qingzi, I'm not sure either. However, the Sword Heart Saint did not know the qi into Trinity technique before. I'm guessing that he must have obtained some inheritance in the Immortal Demon Cave and learned it. After all, there are countless inheritances in the Immortal Demon Cave, and only the capable can obtain them. Ning Wuji said with a wry smile. I hope so, Tai Qingzi said, looking deeply at Ning Wuji. After all, he had no evidence to prove that the Sword Heart Saint's qi into Trinity technique came from the Tai Immortal sect. Perhaps the Sword Heart Saint really did obtain the inheritance in the Immortal Demon Cave. Tai Qingzi noted it down and did not delve into it. Brother Tai Qingzi, this Lei Ling has condensed the space-time Dao fruit. This is the space-time Great Dao, ranked 5th among the 3,000 Great Daos. If we don't get rid of him, he will become a threat to our sect. Ning Wuji's eyes flashed as he said indifferently. Space-time Dao fruit? Does sect leader Ning think that the Sword Heart Saint will be defeated by Lei Ling? Tai Qingzi said indifferently. Third sect leader. Chapter 3046. That won't happen. Lei Ling will definitely be defeated, and the immortal culling sword will eventually belong to the heaven-piercing immortal sect. However, Jianxin is sincere and benevolent. I'm afraid he won't kill Lei Ling. Ning Wuji smiled faintly. Then let's wait until after this battle. Tai Qingzi said non-committally. Tai Qingzi, Ning Wuji, I think Lei Ling will definitely win this battle. This brat is decisive. I hope you won't feel bad when Jianxin dies in his hands. Gu Tongtian said indifferently. Gu Tongtian, you seem to have confidence in Lei Ling. However, if this god's son dies in the Immortal Demon Cave, what will the Shun clan rely on? Ning Wuji sneered. The Shun clan has never relied on anyone. The 12 ancestor gods, the heaven-piercing emperor, and Lei Ling. The strength of the Shun clan has never been the strength of a single person. So what if Lei Ling dies? However, Jianxin is the only one left in the heaven-piercing immortal sect, right? If Jianxin dies, the heaven-piercing immortal sect will be annihilated. Gu Tongtian smiled proudly and stood with his hands behind his back. A domineering aura filled the air. Hearing the conversation between the 3 supreme immortal monarchs, The eyes of the Supreme Elders flashed with a sharp light. Ning Wuji's face instantly turned ashen. Gu Tongtian's words stabbed right into his heart. Just now, dozens of life tokens of the heaven-piercing immortal sect's disciples had been shattered. Ning Wuji guessed that it was most likely Lei Ling's doing. Therefore, he hoped that Jianxin could kill Lei Ling. However, Gu Tongtian's words were exactly what he was worried about. If Jianxin died in Lei Ling's hands, the heaven-piercing immortal sect would really vomit blood this time. At this moment, in the ruins where the ancestral god spring was located, the auras of the 36 divine generals were extremely terrifying and mighty, as if they could shatter the universe. If it weren't for the ancestral god spring's boundary, this space that was on the verge of destruction wouldn't be able to withstand their terrifying auras. Emperor. After Ling Xiao unlocked the bloodline shackles for them, coupled with the majestic origin energy in the ancestral god spring, the 36 divine generals had accumulated a lot of power and passed the Imperial Emperor tribulation one after another. All of them broke through to the Imperial Emperor realm. Tai Xian, who was in a coma, was also startled by the terrifying aura. Thus, the 36 divine generals and Tai Xian all saw the scene of the battle in the void. Victory for the Son of God. Teng Shan's vital energy and blood surged as a murderous aura spread out. His eyes were filled with fanaticism as he knelt down on one knee in midair and spoke resolutely. Victory for the Son of God. The 36 divine generals shouted in unison. Their voices were like thunder, shaking the void. The pool of ancestral god spring water that had accumulated for countless years had been completely absorbed and refined by them. It was as if they had been reborn. All of them revealed their sharpness, and the aura around them was incomparably terrifying. From then on, the 36 disciples of the ancient god cult became the 36 immortal generals under the command of Ling Xiao, the son of God. Tai Xian was shocked. He stared at the void and said with a complicated expression, Lei Ling is actually fighting with the Sword Heart? This battle is really intense. He naturally knew how powerful the Sword Heart was, especially when the Sword Heart had used the I Chi into Trinity technique of the Tai I immortal sect. In Tai Xian's opinion, even his brother Tai Yuan would find it difficult to defeat the Sword Heart who had used the I Chi into Trinity technique. However, Tai Xian had a feeling that Lei Ling would win in the end. Lei Ling, if you defeat the Sword Heart Saint, my brother will be in trouble. Tai Xian's eyes darted around. No one knew what he was thinking about. However, he tragically realized that the 36 immortal generals did not show any signs of leaving. They were guarding the place loyally and watching him as if they were waiting for Ling Xiao's return. The Void Battleground. The battle between Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint had already lasted for thousands of moves. Ling Xiao could feel the power of the Sword Heart Saint. He was truly a peerless genius who was born for the sword. Only Dugu Qiubai could be compared to him. However, the Sword Heart Saint was in an extremely tragic situation. This was because he had encountered Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's physical body was too abnormal. It was so strong that it made others feel hopeless. After merging the wordless heavenly book and the creation jade disc, as well as the chaotic divine bone in his chest, Ling Xiao's bones could withstand an extreme Dao Emperor weapon. Although the Sword Heart Saint was strong and he had the god-slaying sword, an extreme Dao Emperor weapon, he could not break through Ling Xiao's defense. On the contrary, Ling Xiao's strong physical body gave him a strong sense of oppression. The unparalleled fist print seemed to be able to annihilate everything. Every strike carried a vast amount of power, causing the Sword Heart Saint to tremble. He was greatly affected. Moreover, Ling Xiao had formed the space-time Dao fruit. Time and space were controlled by Ling Xiao. He could control the power of space and time as he wished. Although the Sword Heart Saint's cultivation level was higher than Ling Xiao's, the power of time did not affect him much. However, the power of time and space combined caused him a lot of trouble. Most importantly, Ling Xiao had unfathomable speed. Perhaps in the eyes of others, Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint were evenly matched. However, in the Sword Heart Saint's eyes, he was already at a disadvantage. How could the deity tribe produce such a monstrous person? The Sword Heart Saint was shocked and thought with a sigh. Once such a person matured, he would definitely be incomparably strong. So strong that it was terrifying. Sword Heart, take my fist. Ling Xiao suddenly roared. His eyes were extremely sharp and there seemed to be a strange light flickering. It was mysterious and indifferent as if it could see through everything. The Sword Heart Saint could not help but feel a chill down his spine. Eye of the Ruler. Ling Xiao's Eye of the Ruler was formed by the combination of chaos, fate, cause and effect and reincarnation Tao origins. The Eye of the Ruler could see through everything. It could see through 3,000 worlds and reflect all things in the universe. It could even see through the divine immortal stone. Naturally, it could see through everything in an expert's body. Ling Xiao was using the Eye of the Ruler to see through the Sword Heart Saint's flaws and find a sure kill blow. Rumble. His fist was unparalleled as it blasted across the sky. It was as if an endless void was pressing down. At the same time, it contained a mysterious fluctuation of time. He had combined the power of time and space, making this fist extremely terrifying. It completely locked on to the Sword Heart Saint. At the same time, in Ling Xiao's eyes, the four Sword Heart Saints' origin energy revolved within their bodies. The condensation of sword qi, the profoundness of immortal skills, and even the runes on their Tao fruits appeared clearly. However, using the Eye of the Ruler to see through the Sword Heart Saint was a huge burden on Ling Xiao. Therefore it only took a moment. However, at this moment, Ling Xiao's fist had already arrived in front of the Sword Heart Saint. Then it exploded. Kacha! The Sword Heart Saint was blasted apart by Ling Xiao's fist. Third Sect Master. Chapter 3047. Boom. The sword heart exploded in front of Ling Xiao and turned into a wisp of clear air, flying back into the saint's body. One of the three clones had been destroyed by Ling Xiao. The powerful sword formation formed by the four-word sword technique of slaying and extinction instantly became incomplete. Rumble. Ling Xiao's eyes were extremely sharp, and the aura around him was like a dragon, emitting an extremely violent aura. He struck in the air and blasted out thousands of punches in an instant. The vast fist intent swept across the void, destroying the sword qi in the sky, and enveloping the other two clones of the Sword Heart Saint. Destroy! A cold light flashed in the Sword Heart Saint's eyes. The god-slaying sword emitted an unparalleled light, piercing towards Ling Xiao's forehead. Ling Xiao felt a piercing pain between his eyebrows when he sensed the terrifying origin energy of slaughter. If the god-slaying sword really pierced his forehead, even if Ling Xiao did not die, he would suffer an unimaginable injury. Clang. However, Ling Xiao did not hold back. He still pounced towards the other two clones. At the same time, he activated the Great Slaying Immortal Art and took out the god-slaying sword, facing the Sword Heart Saint. Rumble. Ling Xiao's fist intent was unparalleled, and it could destroy everything. It instantly enveloped the two clones of the Sword Heart Saint. Their physical bodies were weak to begin with, so naturally, they were unable to withstand Ling Xiao's violent attack head-on. They all exploded one after another. The god-slaying sword and the god-slaying sword collided, and a dazzling immortal light burst out. The Sword Heart Saint's aura was unparalleled, and his sword intent rose. He actually sent the god-slaying sword flying. The god-slaying sword was like a long rainbow, and its speed was extremely fast. It pierced through the air towards Ling Xiao's forehead. Boom! Ling Xiao clapped his palms together, and the flesh on his hands that had just recovered was instantly torn apart by the sword qi. However, his purple hand bone was crystal clear, and it instantly caught the god-slaying sword, and a loud clanging sound was heard. The sword qi of the god-slaying sword pierced through Ling Xiao's forehead, and it wanted to rush into his sea of consciousness to wreak havoc. However, it was all devoured by Ling Xiao's devouring origin. The Three Pure Ones technique was broken, and the three clones turned back into three streams of clear qi and flew back into the Sword Heart Saint's body. However, the Sword Heart Saint could clearly feel the immense pressure that Ling Xiao brought to him. Rumble. Ling Xiao stared at the Saint of the Sword Heart and smiled faintly. His gaze instantly became extremely sharp. He clamped the immortal slaying sword with both hands, and a terrifying aura burst forth. Then, his whole body went straight up, and the friction between the bones of his hand and the immortal slaying sword even burst forth with an incomparably blazing immortal light. The Zhu immortal sword flew past Ling Zhao's ear, and Ling Zhao's palms suddenly pressed onto the sword heart saint's chest. The sword heart saint Sun's chest shook violently. Unparalleled divine power surged, instantly causing his chest to cave in. Even his bones were shattered. His face turned pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Sword Heart Saint Sun's eyes revealed a trace of unwillingness. His sword chi was unparalleled and could annihilate everything. It had always been successful and had killed countless experts. However, it had lost its effect on Ling Xiao. He had only caused superficial injuries to Ling Xiao, but Ling Xiao's attack was not something he could withstand. Although it was only one palm from Ling Xiao, it almost shattered his physical body. Lei Ling, you are very strong. However, I still have a sword. Even I can't control this sword. If you can't withstand it, you will die. The Sword Heart Saint Sun stared at Ling Xiao and said coldly. His eyes were filled with rising sword essence. Is that so? Then I really want to see it. Ling Xiao said indifferently. The aura around him became more and more terrifying. At this stage of the battle, Ling Xiao also felt a strong pressure from the Sword Heart Saint Sun. However, in this way, Ling Xiao's powerful potential was also stimulated. His unparalleled fist essence swept out in all directions. Even the Sword Heart Saint Sun did not dare to take his fist directly. Kill! The Sword Heart Saint Sun suddenly roared, and the life origin around him actually began to burn. His body emitted a void fire, and even his indestructible primordial spirit began to burn. His glabella bloomed with a bright light. The god-slaying sword in his hand instantly turned blood red. It was extremely strange, but the killing aura was even purer and more intense. Sword of Karma. The Sword Heart's voice slowly rang out. The god-slaying sword was like a blood-red line, crossing the sky and piercing towards Ling Zhao's glabella. That blood-red line was extremely strange, as if it was connected to some incomparably mysterious power. When Ling Xiao first saw it, he felt a chill in his heart. It was as if he could not avoid this sword. Sword of Karma? Could it be the power of karma? Ling Zhao's heart trembled, but he did not have the slightest intention of retreating. He directly punched out. Boom! His blood chi surged, and an overbearing power erupted like a volcano. The vast chaotic fist print was as if it was going to split the heavens and earth. At the same time, the Karma Dao fruit between Ling Zhao's glabella was dazzling. It emitted a mysterious aura and trembled slightly. In the next moment, the blood-red line formed by the god-slaying sword pierced through Ling Zhao's glabella. Ling Zhao's fist also punched through the Sword Heart Saint's chest. The blood-red light spread out and dyed Ling Zhao's glabella red. The terrifying sword essence wreaked havoc in Ling Zhao's consciousness, as if it was going to destroy his primordial spirit. Ling Zhao's fist had also completely shattered the Sword Heart Saint's chest, sending him flying. He directly exploded into a blood mist in the void. It was an internecine outcome. Tragic. Ling Zhao's body trembled violently, as if his entire body had been tainted by the blood-red light. His aura began to weaken rapidly, and the light in his eyes dimmed like a candle flame in the wind. His life was rapidly fading away. There was a trace of regret and disappointment in his eyes as he stared indifferently at the void in the distance. Sword Heart, I didn't expect you to be afraid. Buzz. Just as Ling Zhao's voice fell, the Sword Heart Saint's figure appeared in the void. However, he did not seem to be in a good condition. His face was extremely pale, and his aura was weak. He had been severely injured. The Karma Sword was his most powerful trump card and secret. However, it also represented an unbearable price. Under that sword, his lifespan had been reduced by at least 1,000,000 years. However, the damage caused by that sword was enough. Lei Ling, I'm not afraid. I'm just avoiding harm. However, you have been hit by my karma sword. You will definitely die. The Sword Heart Saint's eyes revealed a trace of inexplicable emotion as he spoke slowly. Is that so? Originally, I really thought that you would risk your life and use the sword of karma to kill me. However, I didn't expect you to use a death substitute puppet. Fear has already formed in your heart. You are afraid. Therefore, I am very disappointed that you can't use the ultimate sword. Ling Xiao said slowly. His gaze was calm, as if he did not care that his entire body was enveloped by the blood-red light. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 3048. It was not the real body of the Sword Heart Saint that was destroyed by his punch. It was a scapegoat puppet. If the Sword Heart Saint was hit by his punch, even if he did not die, his physical body would be completely destroyed and his primordial spirit would be severely injured. But at the last moment, the Sword Heart Saint was afraid, so he used the scapegoat puppet. A scapegoat puppet that could be used by a third heaven immortal lord must be a treasure left behind by a great emperor. Even the Tongtian immortal emperor would not have many of them. Ling Xiao was disappointed that this was not the swordsman he had imagined. The Sword Heart was far inferior to Dugu Qiubai. Lei Ling, whether I use the scapegoat puppet or not, you will die. What's the difference? The Sword Heart Saint looked ferocious as he stared at Ling Xiao and said coldly. Ling Xiao's words seemed to have touched the bottom of his heart. He was indeed afraid just now. Death was not scary, but it was not worth dying. He was the Sword Heart, born with the immortal sword body, the hope of the Tongtian immortal sect, and the demonic existence who created the four-word sword technique. Now, the immortal culling sword and the heavenly sword diagram were within his reach. How could he die? How could he bear to die? As long as Ling Xiao died, not only would the immortal culling sword be his, but the heavenly sword diagram would also be his. When he obtained the celestial slashing sword, he would be the next Tongtian immortal emperor with the heavenly sword diagram and the four great immortal swords. This was a temptation that he could not resist. So what if he was afraid? Of course there is a difference. If you fought with your life on the line, you might not be able to kill me, but you could severely injure me and win my respect. Perhaps you would not die. But you are afraid, and you have disappointed me. I used to compare you with a friend of mine, but now it seems that you are not worthy. There is only one Dugu Qiubai. You are afraid, so you will die too. Ling Xiao shook his head and said lightly. Rumble. The terrifying aura around his body emerged once again. The red light around his body quickly dissipated, and finally disappeared. His qi and blood rose, and his life force was vast and powerful. There were no signs of injuries. What? Impossible. This was impossible. You were struck by my sword of karma. Even if your primordial spirit has a defensive treasure, you can't escape the power of karma. How can you not die? The Sword Heart Saint's eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. He couldn't help but roar. That was the sword of karma. No one could escape the power of karma, so how did Ling Xiao do it? That's right, I was indeed struck by your sword of karma, but I didn't die. On the contrary, you've disappointed me, so I'll kill you. Ling Xiao said calmly. That karma sword was indeed the power of karma. Moreover, it was the fusion of karma and sword Dao. It was extremely terrifying. However, that sword did not have an indomitable ferocity, so the power of karma was naturally weakened. Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness contained the karma Dao fruit, so even though the sword had pierced Ling Xiao's heart, it was completely absorbed by the karma Dao fruit. Ling Xiao's injured state just now was just an act. However, if Jianxin really fought to the death, his karmic sword would probably pierce through Ling Xiao's soul and severely injure him, even with his karmic Dao fruit. He had misjudged the Sword Heart Saint. Impossible. You must be lying to me. No one can block the sword of karma, unless you... The Sword Heart Saint roared as his face became extremely ferocious. However, he suddenly thought of something and his eyes were filled with shock. You condensed the karma Dao fruit? The Sword Heart Saint's voice was trembling as huge waves surged in his heart. How could this be? Ling Xiao had already condensed the space-time Dao fruit, so how could he condense the karma Dao fruit? It was impossible to condense these two supreme Dao fruits at the same time. How did Ling Xiao do it? You're right, but there's no reward. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently as killing intent flashed in his eyes. Then, he punched out and a vast fist intent instantly enveloped the Sword Heart Saint. Rumble. The Sword Heart Saint had already suffered a huge backlash after using the Sword of Karma. He had less than 10% of his strength left, so how could he block Ling Xiao's attack? After a while, the Sword Heart Saint let out an indignant and angry roar before he was blasted apart by Ling Xiao. As for his primordial spirit, it was swallowed by Ling Xiao and suppressed in his consciousness. Ling Xiao used the Devouring Heaven secret skill to destroy his true spirit and devour his memories. After all, regardless of whether it was the Qi into Trinity or the Sword of Karma, Ling Xiao was extremely envious of them. The Sword Heart Saint was dead. Ling Xiao stood in the middle of the void battleground. Although his body was covered in blood and flesh, his Qi and blood surged. His terrifying aura seemed to be able to destroy everything. Boundless baleful aura condensed, and an invincible aura spread out. He looked into the distance and his eyes were deep and calm. It was as though he had seen through the endless void and saw those who were watching the battle. Gotcha. In the next moment, the projection of the void battleground was completely destroyed. The Sword Heart Saint is dead? How can Lei Ling be so strong? I felt that my primordial spirit was about to be shattered by the Sword Heart Saint's last strike. It was extremely terrifying. How did Lei Ling dodge it? In the immortal demon cave, everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. This battle was too exciting and too tragic, especially when the Sword Heart Saint stabbed out with the Sword of Karma. Everyone thought that Ling Xiao was dead, but they did not expect the Sword Heart Saint to be the one who died in the end. This Lei Ling is too terrifying. He will definitely become a great enemy of the deity tribe in the future. Many experts of the deity tribe were filled with worry and fear. The Sword Heart is dead? Tai Yuan's expression was uncertain and his eyes were filled with deep fear. In the space of the relic where the ancestral devouring holy spring was, the 36 divine generals began to cheer. They were extremely excited and roared continuously. Their roars shook the heavens. The Son of God is invincible. 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 This battle had deepened Ling Xiao's invincible image in their hearts. Lei Ling, he really killed the Sword Heart? Tai Xian's eyes were filled with disbelief. Doesn't this mean that the heavenly sword diagram is going to fall into his hands? Something big is going to happen. Tai Xian's body trembled as though he had thought of something terrifying. His face was extremely pale. Who could defeat Ling Xiao with the heavenly sword diagram? Even the Taiyuan saint might not be able to defeat Ling Xiao. Tai Xian could already see the horrifying scene of the deity tribe being slaughtered by Ling Xiao alone in the immortal demon cave. Chapter 3049. Lei Ling, you deserve to die. Outside the immortal demon cave, a cold voice filled with killing intent rang out. It was like a thunderclap, exploding with endless rumbling sounds. In front of Ning Wuji, the last life token representing the Sword Heart Saint shattered. His eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent and fury, and a terrifying aura instantly erupted from his body. Immortal light shone brightly, and auspicious vapors rose. Boundless sword qi shot out, making Ning Wuji shine brightly, emitting a monstrous killing intent and sword intent. The originally gentle and refined Ning Wuji had completely gone berserk. The aura of a peerless immortal lord exploded, causing the supreme elders of the 9 major immortal sects and the 6 major divine sects to turn pale. They all revealed fearful expressions and retreated one after another. Only Tai Qingzi and Gu Tongtian were not affected by the aura. Everyone looked at Ning Wuji with sympathy. The Sword Heart Saint actually died in the hands of Lei Ling. The Sword Heart Saint was Ning Wuji's personal disciple, the most dazzling existence in the entire heaven-connecting immortal sect. Ning Wuji had already appointed him as the young sect master of the heaven-connecting immortal sect. This time, in order to prevent any accidents from happening in the immortal demon cave, Ning Wuji even handed the immortal slaying sword to the Sword Heart Saint. However, the Sword Heart Saint still died. Gu Tong Tian, Lei Ling must die. Whoever dares to stop me, I will kill them. Ning Wuji suddenly raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot and filled with hatred. He stared at Gu Tong Tian and said coldly. The killing intent in his voice was extremely intense. Ning Wuji, you also know how to feel heartache? How many talented disciples of the 6 major divine sects have died over the years? Do you really think that the people of the deity tribe are your prey? This time, I will let you have a taste of what it is like to be prey. Gu Tong Tian glanced at Ning Wuji indifferently. Brother Ning, my condolences. This Lei Ling has already turned into a demon. He will definitely become a great threat to the immortal world in the future. Don't worry, if he dares to come out, I will not let him off. Tai Qingzi said coldly. However, he was a little worried. The strength that Lei Ling had displayed was too heaven-defying. Even Jianxin had died at his hands. Tai Qingzi was a little worried about Tai Yuan. Although Tai Yuan's cultivation was strong, was he really Lei Ling's match? At this moment, everyone from the 9 major immortal sects had solemn looks on their faces. They all saw Lei Ling as their greatest enemy. That's not right. Why didn't the immortal extermination sword fly out? Could it be in Lei Ling's hands? Suddenly, someone asked doubtfully. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they remembered. Since the Sword Heart Saint was already dead, then the Zhu Xian sword should have flown back to its owner, which was Ning Yunji. But why hadn't it flown back yet? If it falls into Lei Ling's hands, we'll be in big trouble. Everyone's expression changed. Even Ning Yunji's expression became extremely ugly. The killing intent in his eyes became even more intense. When Ling Xiao was battling with the Sword Heart Saint, the sword diagram that appeared in the void battleground was clearly seen by everyone. Ning Yunji also recognized it at a glance. That was the heavenly sword diagram. Since the Sword Heart Saint was already dead, then the heavenly sword diagram must have fallen into Lei Ling's hands. With the heavenly sword diagram, even if the Zhu Xian sword had been refined by Ning Yunji, it should have been imprisoned by the heavenly sword diagram. Ning Yunji's face suddenly turned pale. The sword chi around his body hummed and shook violently. He suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. How could it be, so fast? His eyes were filled with disbelief. The natal brand that he had left in the Zhu Xian sword had been erased. In the immortal demon cave. Clang, clang. 2 clear sounds of swords rang out. The immortal culling sword and the Zhu Xian sword trembled slightly. They turned into 2 divine rainbows and were instantly sucked into the heavenly sword diagram. The heavenly sword diagram swept over and sucked Ling Xiao in as well. Rumble. Ling Xiao seemed to have arrived in a chaotic void. It was like the beginning of the world. Sword essence rose around him and sword radiance flashed. It was like a world of swords. As soon as Ling Xiao entered this world, he was attracted by a sword. Or rather, it was not a sword. It was just a sword embryo. In front of Ling Xiao, the sword embryo looked neither gold nor jade. It was milky white and flowed with a halo. It had vaguely taken the shape of a sword and was floating in the void. But this sword embryo made Ling Xiao feel a vast and boundless sword essence, like an endless sea. The immortal culling sword contained the killing intent and could bring about endless destruction. The immortal culling sword contained the heavenly punishment and Tao annihilation, with the majesty and dominance of a king. But whether it was the immortal culling sword or the immortal culling sword, Ling Xiao could feel that they were inferior to the sword embryo in front of him. Rumble. Chaotic light surged in the surroundings as sword chi rose. It was as if they were all pouring into the sword embryo, causing the sword embryo to flicker and flicker. That feeling, it was like a person's breathing. This was a sword embryo that had been nurtured with spirituality. Could this be the sword embryo that the heavenly Grandmaster Emperor mentioned? Devour. Ling Xiao thought to himself. Ling Xiao recalled the message left behind by the heavenly Grandmaster Emperor in the Hall of Gods. The Heavenly Grandmaster Emperor had left a sword embryo in the Heavenly Grandmaster sword diagram. It was the Supreme Emperor weapon that the Heavenly Grandmaster Emperor wanted to refine. But unfortunately, the Heavenly Grandmaster Emperor did not succeed in refining it. He only left the sword embryo in the Heavenly Grandmaster sword diagram to nurture it. The Heavenly Grandmaster Emperor has been dead for countless years. This sword embryo has also been nurtured for countless years. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with a glint. He suddenly felt that the sword embryo in front of him seemed to be connected to him by blood. It was as if it was prepared for him. This feeling was not felt when Ling Zhao was refining the immortal culling sword or other Supreme Emperor weapons. Ling Zhao slowly walked towards the sword embryo. Rumble. Just when Ling Zhao was 100 feet away from the sword embryo, a powerful sword essence rose instantly. It was extremely sharp, as if the Supreme Emperor of Swords had come back to life. The sword embryo instantly released a vast and unparalleled sword Dao pressure. The mighty sword will press down on Ling Zhao. In an instant, it was as if hundreds of millions of divine mountains were pressing down on his body. At the same time, a shocking divine sword appeared in his sea of consciousness. It exuded an aura that made his primordial spirit tremble. Ling Zhao's movements instantly became incomparably difficult. The sword embryo instantly shone brightly. Thousands of rays of divine light shone brightly and thousands of rays of auspicious qi. It buzzed and vibrated, exuding an extremely sharp sword radiance. The vast sword essence shrouded Ling Zhao's surroundings. Ling Zhao felt as if he had fallen into a boundless storm. Is this the test of the sword embryo? Ling Zhao's eyes became brighter and brighter. His body exuded a vast and unparalleled aura. His blood qi rose and surged. He channeled all of his cultivation to withstand the powerful sword intent and walked step by step toward the sword embryo. P.S. Second update. After yesterday's outburst, I went on a business trip today. In the future, Muyu will make sure to update twice and make more outbursts. Thank you for your support. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.